So are we actually live or are we fake live?
You tell me. It's on your channel.
It says offline, does not say live.
I hit.
Nope, never mind. It says it's starting.
Nice.
But there we go. Hey
Insert
now.
insert professional intro here.
There you go. Hey everybody, glad you could join us for our second stream of the day. That's how professional we are. We will do 2 streams of the day if the first one is under 7 hours long. That's the new rule here at PSA Sitch and Friended.
Yep. We gave you a lousy, what did it come out to? Like an hour, maybe?
It was like an hour, yeah.
He was only going to give us 25 minutes, so.
That's right. We squeeze an extra 40 minutes out of him.
Yeah. Do you, I have the chat up, so if anyone has any comments on the stream that we just did, I thought it went pretty well. Your thoughts, Sitch?
Yeah, I thought I had an idea I told Adam before the stream started, which I thought might be a good idea for a future is to have him, or to have, if we're talking to someone who doesn't like something Jordan Peterson said, is to have, we'll all watch the video in question like we do normally, and then they can pause it and tell us specifically what they don't like about the statement so that the discussion can be focused on specifics as opposed to kind of going off in all directions.
It's interesting that we talk so much about disgust because I was kept thinking so many of these people just go into whatever they're watching Jordan Peterson with disgust for conservatives. They're like, I hate conservatives.
Right. Well, it's like, you know what I was saying with the Twitter clip is like, it's primed. There's like people are psychologically primed when someone puts the clip on Twitter and says Jordan Peterson is a Nazi apologist and he's right wing. So they're looking to take the most uncharitable, viewpoint of what he's saying, even if they're not doing that intentionally.
Yeah. He was pretty charitable with us. So, and we did learn. I mean, his problem with the disgust versus hate thing, how do you get around that and still talk about this in psychology terms?
Well, I think the only way to get around it is to say, well, this is what his intention was. And then you unfortunately get into that intention versus effect argument, which is so vast that I don't think either of us wants to get into it. And it's basically going to come down to personal opinion anyway. But I think you can responsibly make an argument in terms of, you can responsibly make the argument that you believe that people could misinterpret what Jordan Peterson is saying, and that maybe he has some more responsibility to clarify. I think you can say those words, but I don't think most people do say those words. They kind of go around, they have much more harsher words.
The intention versus outcome argument. I mean, for me, it falls off when we're talking about microaggressions. It's like, get over it. But it's certain, there are certain areas, like there is involuntary manslaughter, which is, I didn't mean to do it, right? I mean, there you're looking, it's structured to take intention into mind. But there are certain egregious things that even if you didn't intend to do it, you're definitely going to get in trouble for.
Right. But more importantly than that, do you want to show everyone your shirt?
Oh yeah, my new Jordan Peterson shirt. Look at this. I didn't want to wear this on the stream with him. So I put another shirt on, and here's the great thing right here. Look, it's got Sam Harris hiding under, jealously looking at Jordan Peterson.
We should have known that you would have put Sam Harris right on your nipple.
Look at that. He's actually closer to my armpit, to be honest with you.
So, not even.
He's a creeper. So look at this. He's totally jealously looking at Jordan Peterson as the light of heaven shines down on Jordan Peterson's forehead. And he's got a little triangle in there. It's one of the thumbs that I did. I mean, you can see it as one of the thumbs on my channel, but I thought it was cool. I'm really experimenting with this shirt thing. And I'm amazed at how good these shirts look on black. That's normally t-shirts on black don't look that good. But,
what do you mean on black?
Well, I grew up making...
On black people? You racist? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, totally. It's like they disappear. No, I'm talking about a design on a black shirt. You
Demonetized. See, now
racist.
it's on my channel. You don't care if it gets demonetized.
Actually, I don't know if the R word is a demonetized word, but you're always throwing F bombs around. Hey,
What's
are
the
these
R word?
streams getting
R-
demonetized? We're kicking ass as far as ass. We're
Shit, fuck. No, the streams haven't been demonetized.
Oh, nice. We're kicking butt as far as, I mean, we got 10,000 views, although it's a novelty. People are like, what's this? Sitch actually does live streams.
Yeah. How dare you say that? How
It,
dare you?
it'll
People enjoy our witty banter and
af-
commentary.
after 4 streams, we're going to be down to like 200 views. I'm telling
No, with that attitude. With that attitude.
So we might try to do another one of those things. The thing about interviews is you get better as you go. So obviously with
Right.
everything you get better as you go. So that's the thing to do.
Mr. Shades for 2 Canadians. Jordan, do as I say, not as I do, Peterson. How dare you, sir? How dare you?
Is that a hater?
This is
Can we block him?
Jordan Peterson safe space.
That's funny. Bring it on. We want more Jordan Peterson hate. Give us
That's
a $10 Jordan Peterson hate chat.
Right, you want to stay camouflaged.
Oh,
Hugo and Jake, right? We did two, 3. I don't even know how many streams we've done on Hugo and Jake.
for those of you that don't know, we've done a bunch of Hugo and Jake video streams on them before. They've been going through each chapter of 12 Rules for Life and misrepresenting every single chapter. So the Jordan Peterson Internet Defense Force is here.
If it's any consolation, I do not think these guys are misrepresenting Jordan Peterson on purpose. Like, I don't think they're actually smart enough to know what Jordan Peterson is talking about.
How dare you?
I'm just putting it out there. There's not militia. It's more of an IQ thing that's going on.
I'll be slightly more charitable. I don't think it's an IQ thing. I think it's what we were talking about before. They're primed to see Jordan Peterson is bad religious man, conservative.
Right.
I mean, they talk about that. I don't know if you've seen this. Have you seen this stream that they do?
No, I haven't watched one bit of it.
It's because they keep bringing up, like, they have this theory that Jordan Peterson is trying to convert everyone to Christianity and that he's a deeply religious Christian who believes in God, even though we'll get into it. They specifically read him saying things that would seem to counteract that.
The religious side watches Jordan Peterson, and I think people really want Jordan Peterson to be on their side. Like, I keep thinking I feel for them because I feel like Jordan Peterson is an atheist.
I think you're right.
I don't think that he's not gonna do that. He's not gonna take sides. First of all, in his clinical psychology practice, like clinical psychology is all about not taking sides because you don't want to seem judgy.
Right.
He's not going to do that. He's not going to come out and say, "Yeah, I'm Christian." Did you watch the Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson talk on Dave Rubin?
I did.
So did you notice, and you'd have to look closely to notice this, but I definitely caught it, when Dave Rubin presses about the God question, and he doesn't ask him directly, but Ben Shapiro's talking about it. Jordan Peterson does a head in hands kind of gesture. It's kind of like this. Oh God, why are we talking about this?
Yeah.
So
the conversation. I thought the conversation could have been better if I wanted Ben Shapiro to like really push back on Jordan Peterson's interpretation of Christianity from a Jewish perspective, because I think there's a valid criticism that nobody makes or very few people make about Jordan Peterson, which is that I really like Jordan Peterson's interpretation of Christianity, but I don't think it's the mainstream one. I don't think most people view Christianity the way he does.
Right. What is the interpretation?
Well, his was about how, you have to, like, that Jesus is kind of this paradigm that every person is living up to in terms of, you have to, he said this repeatedly, that you have to bear as much responsibility as you can in life, and that's what makes you ascend, and that's what makes you become happy, is having all this responsibility. And he's kind of, using the idea of Jesus carrying the cross. Everyone has to carry this burden through life, and that life is essentially suffering, and that's how you get through the suffering. And maybe I'm wrong, because I'm a Jew, but I don't think that's the mainstream interpretation of Christianity.
That life is suffering? I think it totally is.
No, not that part. I mean the part about, that Jesus is this paradigm that we're all supposed to bear as much responsibility in the world as we can.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is the forgiveness thing. I mean, there's a whole bunch of virtue ethics that are distilled in the archetype of Jesus, but I don't know that Jordan Peterson even believes that there's really a historical Jesus. Like, I don't know that he even buys it.
Right.
So,
well, I was surprised that I keep saying Reuben, that Shapiro didn't bring up, because what seems like one of the main distinctions between Judaism and Christianity is that Judaism is more a practical for the time period, because it's a set of laws. It's how to govern society, how people are supposed to live right now. And Christianity is kind of more like, it's not really focused on legal stuff. It's like, oh, you have to live a specific moral, spiritual way because in the next life. Mm-hmm. Like, Christianity has kind of already given up on this life. So I agree that Christianity kind of says this life is suffering. Yeah. But Judaism doesn't say that. Judaism says the opposite.
Probably why the Jews control the media.
Exactly.
I always make that argument. It's like, I think actually the apocalyptic stuff that both Christianity falls into and Islam falls into, I think is dangerous. Like when you're making changes to your religious system, I think doing away with the apocalyptic stuff is step one. And Judaism has kind of done away with that stuff, correct?
Well, there is no apocalyptic stuff in Judaism.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
well, when you have the apocalyptic,
there's barely anything about an afterlife.
So when you have the apocalyptic stuff and your parents are talking about the world's going to end soon, you think, why should I try hard in school? Geez, the world's coming to an end soon.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. It's kind of, you think Jordan Peterson would talk about that, because that's kind of the antithesis of everything he believes.
Yeah, totally. I don't know how we get that out of Christianity, because that's a terrible strain. And I notice it's one of the things that I think definitely needs to change. But the apocalyptic stuff is just culturally present, even if you're talking non-religiously, if you're just talking about liberals and conservatives. I mean, the liberals are like, the Nazi Holocaust is right around the corner. And
global warming.
And yeah, exactly. And the conservatives are like, oh my God, we're going liberal takeover. It's going to be 5-way marriages, transvestites.
And all the Mexicans are going to come, and the Democrats are going to, make them all citizens so that they all vote, blue.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's apocalyptic thinking on both sides. I mean, it works for politics, so.
Sure.
But the people who don't like Jewish people, it's like they have a superior culture. Don't like, you should be trying to clone their culture, not being discouraged.
Shut it down. You're giving away our secrets.
I'm serious.
Adam's giving away the secrets.
Cultural evolution is real. Seriously, one of the reasons why America is the greatest country in the world is because of our cultural innovation.
I don't know if it's, well, I guess it depends on what you mean when you say superior culture, because I'm assuming that, Jewish culture, what we think of as Jewish culture, as in parents pushing their children to be, doctors and lawyers and all that other shit.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that is good. But I don't know. That could all be recent. Like, I don't think that might not have a historical basis at all.
Really?
I don't know.
It wasn't like 3 BC and they're like, you're going to be an attorney.
It's an interesting question. I think, and I've thought about doing this, I think in terms of the Jewish question, there's interesting historical and possibly evolutionary drives that have created, the supposed higher Ashkenazi IQs in Jews. Right. And I think that's an interesting topic to explore. So maybe that's related to what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Hey, look, we all have red backgrounds, all 3 of us. How cool is that?
Super cool.
It is. It's the best.
You have the ASMR Sitch.
No,
So
I
I have to whisper for the rest of the stream.
All right, how do I get rid of Baby Sitch?
Tristan Drizzo for $1.99. Jordan, don't be a political activist, Peterson. Thank you for the donation.
Jordan, don't be a political activist, Peterson.
Okay, are you ready?
By Tristan
Are you ready,
Disto,
buddy?
$1.99.
Ready to get into this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Pushed against the herd like a zebra. You don't want to stand out. So you go up to the zebra in your Jeep and you've got a stick with a rag on it. And you put a nice daub of red paint on the zebra's haunch. And the first thing that you know, you get it the hell out of there and the lions kill it. Because they can identify the thing that stands out. And so that's why there aren't creative people.
Hello everyone, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And welcome back to our reading of...
It took me 3 hours to read this.
Welcome back to our reading of...
Okay, so here's the most important question of the video. He should have kept the beard.
Come on. Ad hominem? Already?
That's all I'm gonna say. No, I'm. It's friendly advice.
Okay.
I think you should go back to the beard.
How many cuts were in that intro opening there? Jeez, I was like, just let him talk.
Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, an Antidote to Chaos. Today
It's not an antidote, it causes it.
we're getting over the hump, so to speak. We are in the 7th rule.
Boy, was it a hump.
And this is pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. He doesn't
That was expedient. This was not that word.
Here's the thing. Jordan Peterson spends this entire chapter reciting Bible stories and then talking about why those Bible stories are all about how you should withhold from pleasure now.
It's a sermon.
In order to get something better later on.
That doesn't sound Christian at all to me. I don't know.
Once you read it, it is. So
isn't that a good thing though?
Yeah, let's talk about the marshmallow test. Don't all the Jews score excellent on the marshmallow test?
What are you talking about?
You don't know the marshmallow test?
No.
So some psychologists, they did this test on kids. They do it on super young kids. I don't know exactly how old they are. I'm going to say 5, but that may be wrong. And then they follow them like 25, 30 years in the future. And whether or not they're successful can be traced back to how they score on this marshmallow test. And the test is they set a marshmallow out and they say, if you don't eat the marshmallow by the time we come back, we'll give you 2 marshmallows. So it's a deal, right? You can't eat the marshmallow,
okay.
But it's like right in front of them, and they film it. It's hilarious. You can look it up on YouTube. But some of the kids are like,
I have seen this.
Some of the kids are like, damn, marshmallow's gone in like 30. Like the researcher doesn't even make it out the door, and the marshmallow's already in the mouth. And some of the kids sit there and they're like, oh God, I want to eat that marshmallow so bad. But it's hilarious. Yeah, putting off. So it is the exact same analogy that they're talking about. It's putting off self-gratification for a better payoff in the future. The thing that they do with the kids, though, is a little sadistic because the researcher never actually comes back.
Oh, really?
They just time to see how long they can wait.
That is pretty fucked up.
Can you imagine?
So were you being serious about Jewish kids doing better, or is that just a joke?
No, I imagine they do. Are you kidding? They imagine their mom.
Funny.
They imagine their mom going, I will kill you if you eat that marshmallow.
You're going to disappoint your mother.
Well, there seems to be like a corollary between intelligence as well. So,
right. So
delayed gratification. Yeah. If you have kids, will you ever make them do the marshmallow test? Because I'm going to test them like immediately. It's going to be like the first thing I do.
There you go. That's what I'll do. When they're 1 year old, marshmallow test.
Without further ado, we normally section these off into sections, but this chapter's kind of a mess, so this whole episode is just...
You know what isn't a massive pile of garbage?
What?
Our super chat. Marcion. That's a good segue, wasn't it? Marcion of Sinope, if I'm saying that right, for $5. I'm the son of a Baptist preacher. I'm the son of a Baptist preacher man. And his interpretation of bear your cross matches Peterson's. There are other similarities, but not all. So there you go.
Yep.
I, the Jew, don't know shit about Christianity.
The barrier cross is pretty ever present. And the whole idea, well, my personal experience with Christianity was just they drill into your head that Jesus is the archetype that you got to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
And then they try to establish this archetype of forgiving, always doing the right thing. I mean, it's from a psychological perspective, it's the way to teach something. It really is. But
Right.
everyone gets all hung up on the fact, oh, it's not actually true. It's like,
Well, it's as you were saying, if you could pick out all the negative aspects of it and just leave the positive aspects, it'd be fine, right?
yeah. How is Judaism isn't catechism, right? That's Catholic.
Yes.
How does Judaism go? I mean, how do they teach Judaism?
Well, typically, what you do is you go to a Sunday school that's supposed to be preparation for your bar or bat mitzvah.
Mm-hmm.
And there you learn how to read Hebrew and all the history and all that stuff. And then after your bar bat mitzvah, you can be what's called confirmed at 15. And it's basically just another 2 years of learning Jew stuff. So I guess that's the equivalent of catechism.
But it's not archetypal, like.
Well, they tell you the stories, if that's what you mean.
Right. But so they don't say be like Moses or anything like that.
My experience was that the classes were not like that. But my rabbi, if you went to services when I was little, he would frame the things like that in terms of what the message of the Bible stories are. Because the way Jewish religious services are supposed to function is that every week you read a different part of the Torah, a different part of the Bible, and then the rabbi explains why it's relevant today or whatever. So,
gotcha. That's pretty much what they do in Christianity too. Definitely.
mm-hmm. And yes, it was very boring.
So the chapter begins cheerily enough with this little tidbit. Life is suffering. That's clear. There is no more basic, irrefutable truth. It's basically what God tells Adam and Eve immediately before he kicks them out of paradise.
So
When you're creating a little graphic with the words, why don't you just, not have the letters be cut off and not put hyphens, right?
Yeah. Pro tip from the editors over here.
Just make the text a little smaller,
Editing pros.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. We edit.
I did this on stream where I read it out loud. I'm going to count that's clear as a sentence.
Yeah.
It's not. So 3 sentences, and then we're talking about Jesus and God and the Bible for the rest of this.
I also want to point out, he says,
See, that's the important thing to notice, is that their entire perception of this is framed under the lens of Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is trying to convert you to Christianity.
It's not working.
life is suffering. No, life includes suffering, but unless you're a person who maybe mainstays Hot Topic, maybe you're like one of their highest clients, life is not suffering.
Life definitely includes suffering.
I was gonna say, for these guys, I was thinking, man, life just seems like a lot of suffering to me.
Oh, how dare you! How dare you!
Well, you could tell he was like, well, I have a lot of suffering in my life. I mean, I have a lot of suffering in my life. Don't think I don't. I mean, suffering. It's not.
Well, do you think life is suffering? I mean, because I don't think they understand. I don't think they understand what he's talking about when he says life is suffering.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, we all have challenges. They get more numerous until you literally can't take it anymore.
Well, and I think they bring this up at some point in the stream, which is that because when Peterson talks about life being suffering, what he means is sort of like the idea that you have to struggle to do anything and everything. Like you can't just snap your fingers and survive and have a ham sandwich pop out of the ether for you.
Yeah.
Everything is this constant struggle and battle. And we take that for granted. Like obviously that's the way life works. But every problem we have kind of stems from just that initial point of work that we all have to do. That we have to. I mean, you have to work to just survive and to not die.
Yeah.
And I don't think they appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't. They're not a lot. They're not really thinking about it, but their ultimate goal is not to think about it. Their ultimate goal is to argue against it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, they want to. The whole. You're right on the money about the whole. They perceive Jordan Peterson as this secret Christian converter. I mean, there might be some of that going on. I mean, I've seen videos where people are talking about how Jordan Peterson convinced him to take another look at Christianity, but I don't
Oh
necessarily.
yeah, I think it's happening. I don't disagree with that.
People being embedded in a church and turning their lives around, I don't think is a bad thing, though. But to them, it is because these guys are
Right.
anti-theists, and oh no.
Well, again, I think it depends on the type of church. I mean, you don't want to join, one of those
Church of Satan.
Neon Genesis, stadium churches where there's like the guy who's like, "Give me all your money and God will bless you."
The Robert Putnam has a book, I think it's American Grace, where he actually goes into the mega churches. He talks about is it Earl Warren? Who's the guy
I don't know.
that wrote A Purpose-Driven Life? It doesn't matter. He runs a mega church in Texas, and they've designed those churches because you can't just run a mega church and not actually provide a service. How do you fill 1 million seats? I mean, you got to be doing something right, correct?
Right.
So they have these smaller groups that are like study groups, and they really just become like 20 people in a weekly social meeing, which is great. They all network. They share probably business contacts. Like it's not necessarily a bad thing. So
Well, it's you're saying it's filling a communal need.
yeah, people used to do that kind of stuff. I mean,
Right.
they used to have the PTA meeting and stuff like. People look for ways to do that. So I don't necessarily.
People used to talk to their neighbors.
Yeah, having the internet and YouTube, people do it on YouTube. I mean, it's the same exact thing.
Right.
But the anti-theist, though, I don't know. It's like they're not based.
Yeah, but you acknowledge that. I mean, that those little study groups, depending on what they're talking about, they could be terrible.
Well, I'm sure. So 20 people organized. They probably do stuff that they want to do. Like they're not.
Right.
I'm sure they're very egalitarian as far as what they study. Like someone doesn't come in and go, "We're studying this hellfire."
Yeah, but I mean, like if the preacher at the mega church is, spending an hour talking about why gay people are going to burn in hell and are evil.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to obviously affect everyone else. Now, I don't know how often that's talked about. That could be a thing of the past.
Yeah, I think it probably is, but I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I would hope so.
You'd think in this day and age, though, that some of these anti-theists would go in and record that stuff and upload it to YouTube. It'd be like a big, huge thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe.
it was funny. I was just listening this morning very briefly to, was it Distributist or someone had a live stream, and he had someone on, and they said that every church they go to talks only about SJW stuff.
Really? I'm going to church. Where do I go? Sign me up.
These are all like trans acceptance stuff, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know what area he lives in.
Oh, you mean? Oh man, you ruined it for me. I thought they were talking about how bad the SJWs are.
No,
Now you're
no,
telling me they're talking
pro-SJW
about how
stuff.
good.
Yeah, no, the opposite.
All right, I hate church.
So maybe
we got to get rid
all
of
the
religion.
anti-theists. Yeah, maybe all the anti-theists just need to go to a liberal church and they'll change their mind.
Probably so.
See, and he makes a case for it, basically saying that, like, you have to work to fucking survive, but is that suffering?
Not particularly dependent.
We all
upon...
joke about it, but that's not.
I mean, because he's thinking like work. Oh, like you have to go do your job. Like he's not, as you were saying, they're not thinking about every thing that happens in the world that's bad. It all stems from this original biological need to survive.
Yeah. You mean like screwing people over
Exactly.
for money?
or that nature literally designed people to have in-group, out-group preferences. So nature designed people to be racist and sexist.
Yeah, to go against each other.
Yeah, and to be ultra competitive and to murder each other and rape each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's suffering, isn't it?
One of the things Peterson actually talks about, you said that you don't agree with him on everything. The thing that he talks about that drives me bonkers is the women are selective thing. Because I keep thinking, women were there in our evolutionary past. Women were definitely oppressed. Like I don't deny that.
Right.
We got
Well,
a
when
super
he,
chat.
oh, so I see what you're saying. So I'm assuming when he's saying women are selective, he means, in situations where they have the free will to be selective.
Yeah, which is the last minute of evolutionary history. Let's be honest.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, I would think we existed as cave people, right, for thousands of years,
Right.
longer than we existed in civilizations.
Right.
And I would assume that the women only didn't have selective choices if, one tribe was conquered by another tribe. But within the tribe, I'm assuming they had preferences and choice.
There's that. Yes, the caveman situation where women were just considered a reproductive resource, a resource like any other resource, right?
Well, no, I'm saying they would only be considered that by other tribes.
You're
in
saying,
their own tribe, they were probably. I thought all the research
in their
points to
own
that
tribe,
hunter-gatherers
in their
were
own
egalitarian.
in their
terms
own
of
tribe,
sexism.
their family decided who they were going to mate with. So
Is
they
that
still
true? Do
didn't
we
have
know?
a choice.
Well, but then I guess the question is, who's their family? Is it their mother?
Mother and father, I'm certain of it.
So I guess I don't know.
It's
Well, we're
half-
also making. We don't really know the answer to that question.
In half
about
the
what,
world, they still
cavemen
have
live.
arranged marriages,
Right.
which they're
But
not
a lot of
selecting. They're not being the
Well, wait a minute.
selectors.
Yeah, but a lot of the arranged marriages come out of. Oh, see, but here's the problem. Arranged marriages come out of property transactions. And in hunter-gatherer societies, there wasn't property. So I don't know if that would make sense that they would have arranged marriages back then.
I bet they did.
I mean, I'm sure they had, as you were saying, I'm sure the parents would be like, don't marry that caveman. He's, not good at spearing the deer or whatever. But I don't know if they were like, oh, you have to marry Uga because Booga, smells bad.
Short of Froman 4 for $5. They are another example of an issue I've found with so many people today. They don't put in the effort to truly think. JBP is bad man. Okay. Okay. That's from South Park.
Not really suffering.
Sure.
Kind of minimizes actual suffering, in my opinion.
So he talks a little bit about Adam and Eve and how life is suffering, and then he says to that, what in the world should be done about it? The simplest, most obvious, and most direct answer? Pursue pleasure. Follow your impulses. Live for the moment. Do what's expedient. Lie, cheat, steal, deceive, manipulate, but don't get caught. In an ultimately meaningless universe, what possible difference could it make? So he is essentially extolling the idea of some sort of hedonistic nihilism as the default position for one who feels life is suffering.
It's also beyond hedonistic nihilism, because it implies that lying, cheating, stealing, deceiving, manipulating are all things we gain pleasure from. I'm sure in a limited capacity, once in a while, those things could definitely include a pleasurable feeling to the...
Okay, this is such a weird... how could you misunderstand this? Obviously, the point isn't that lying and cheating and causing suffering grants you pleasure. It's that you lie and cheat and cause suffering to get pleasure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna lie. Yeah, you're gonna lie. You're gonna lie to the girl to get her to sleep with you.
Just Sitch. I would never do that.
Exactly. So
what are some good lies that might work hypothetically in that situation?
Oh, yeah, I just got back from my astronaut mission on the International Space Station. I'm going to Mars in a month.
I had a guy at a party in Los Angeles come up to me and openly proposition that we would go around and tell everyone how we were producers. And I was like, are you kidding me? I can't no, get out of here. Get out of here, punk.
There you see, but that's the perfect example. It's like, yes, some
Totally.
people get gratification out of lying to people and deceiving them.
They
But most
do.
people, yeah, but most people, the lie is the tool to get to the gratification.
Yes.
So it's weird that they're stuck on this point.
Yeah, totally. But both, I mean, if you can get the gratification and get gratification out of the lying, those people are just bastards. But I think I think a lot of the problem is like people innately just they grow up and they get the theory of mind and they assume, oh, people think like me, and most people are generally good people. I actually think the social justice warriors are good people. They just think that they think that other people are the same good people, and it just there are not good people in the world. Like they have this theory of mind that people are innately good, and there are people that are not innately good.
I think most people are. Well, I don't know if I agree with you that the SJW types think people are innately good, because if they're looking at the world through this power struggle, and not therefore that justifies being a shithead. I mean, I'm assuming they think everyone else thinks the same way.
Yeah, there is some crossover, and I guess it comes back to just people in general just use whatever argument tool is at their disposal for whatever purpose. I remember Matt Dillahunty in his debate with Jordan Peterson kind of backed himself into a corner saying that we don't need Christianity because people can be good without God. And it's a typical anti-theist argument that you don't need the threat of eternal damnation or the promise of eternal life to be good, that you can be good without those stipulations. But
Right.
I mean, that is the idea, that people are just innately good without any motivational force. I don't know that that's true for everyone. I think there are certain people that's true for.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think some people can, abide by the Sam Harris of, ethics through pragmatism and having society prosper.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the numbers are. I don't think that's most people, though.
I guess what you're saying, though, is there is a clear in-group, out-group dividing line where you say if you're SJW, assume everyone who's on the in-group is good and everyone who's on the out-group is evil.
Well, I'm saying that if you buy into critical theory or postmodernism or any of this other stuff, where they basically say all the world is a power struggle. I mean, if your baseline is everything in the world is a power struggle, I don't think you're thinking other people are good inherently.
Yes, I agree with that.
The person committing them.
Sure.
I can't imagine none of those have ever run into that. But as a rule, I don't think that lying, cheating, stealing, deceiving, and manipulating will always net you hedonistic pleasure.
No.
So that's not a way to live your life, even if you were just basically hedonistic and nihilistic. What this is a misrepresentation, a straw man, if you will, of hedonistic nihilism altogether, which I don't partake in, but I'm kind of irked on behalf of those that do, because it's so inaccurate.
Also, what difference?
I know, it's funny.
They're defending hedonistic nihilism.
I watched a debate with Richard Carrier and SJ Thomas, I think is her name. Sorry if I got that wrong, but he said he was a hedonist, and he was trying to make an argument that being selfless is ultimately a selfish act. I was like, what?
I mean, I guess if you personally derive pleasure from it, right?
Yeah,
I don't think that's most people, though.
That was his argument, but I was saying, listen, morality is about doing the right thing when it ain't what you want to do.
Right.
Not when
That's
it
a good
is what
point.
you want to do, right? Think of
That's a
the
good
guy who
point.
throws himself on the grenade. Oh, pleasure. Look, I get to save all my buddies.
Maybe that's the problem. As you said, that's that guy, his theory of mind is that he derives pleasure from being selfless. So I guess he just assumes everyone else is just as capable as that.
See,
as he
I'm
is.
telling you this. And I also thought too, when you said it, I was like, But they do think like women are all innately good and men are all innately bad. Like they have the whole intersectional thing where it's like
That's true. So it only,
black
it only
people
applies to
are
men.
all innately good. You know, it's an in-group out-group thing. It totally is.
Well, it's almost like your group's power is what gives you morality. So if you're a woman or you're a black male, since your group has been oppressed, you're good magically,
Yes.
according to their moral structure. But if you're a white guy, you're evil.
Yeah.
Could it make jail if you're committing crimes?
Jail, like typically, and this goes back to the Dillahunty debate, where they basically discuss secular morality, and you don't do those things from a secular perspective, which is usually where hedonistic nihilism lives.
Sure.
Right. I wouldn't say
I just got to say, he's talking about the exact same thing I talked about.
Does that trigger you?
No, it's just awesome. It's like I can read this guy's mind. He even mentioned the
Maybe
Dillahunty debate. Dillahunty. So in the
Maybe you guys are on the same wavelength.
No. Seriously, where's the brain out? I need to put that in so I can click the super brain at moments like this. So he's referencing Dillahunty, and in the Jordan Peterson Dillahunty debate, which I've done like 7 videos on. So I've been through that debate like with a fine-tooth comb. There's a moment when Dillahunty is about to say that people are just good by nature. But he backs up and he's like, I ask people sometimes, if you found out that there was no God, would you rape and murder and steal? And he's like, and there are people that tell me yes. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to believe that they're lying to me is basically what he says. And I'm like, man, you need to read some history, buddy. You need to read some books.
Well, it's interesting because was the last stream, it was with the anarcho-capitalist guy, right?
Yes.
It's you could make a similar argument in terms of, because his point was that, violence is going down, everything's getting better. And then we said, and Sargon says, well, that's because we had a capitalist system that, had that structure that allowed things to get better. So in a way, the anti-theist argument is sort of the same thing. It's, well, maybe you needed religion at some point for things to get better, but we've moved beyond that.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, I don't necessarily either. And like I said at the beginning of the stream, there's problems with religion. Like the end of the world stuff I don't think is helpful. You can't just, like, religion is an emergent property. You can't just change it. I think actually Judaism, man, I'm just fawning all over Judaism in this stream, but don't they have like a system to change it? Don't they get like they have regular meetings and they make changes to the, Catholicism does that.
Yeah, I think I thought all the 3 book religions did that. They don't change it. They have, a bunch of people argue over interpretations.
Yeah.
And then they write in a book.
Not biblical literalists though. I mean, they're like, there's not a good apparatus for changing Christianity because it's a bottom up kind of thing where Catholicism is a top down.
It's an interesting point. I think Judaism has a little bit easier time since it's based on. The point of Judaism was to create laws, and that was not the point in Christianity. So you kind of have this weird legal system and ways of kind of arguing about things built into the religion, where you don't really have that in Christianity. Even though I know that they do that. They argue about shit all the time.
We have a super chat. It might be relevant.
Pop in the pig for £5. Further to your point on being on the same wavelength, maybe instead you can simulate the 2 show. I don't understand.
Yeah, I think maybe he's saying that we're both. Well, you're that we're a 2 show and they're a 2 show. I'm not sure.
Oh, I think you're just really in love with him, and this is your coming out.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I love everyone. I'm like Jesus, man.
Of course. Ah.
I'm a secret Christian.
I don't think Jesus.
I'm trying to convert everyone.
Like, you're trying to convert everyone by talking up Judaism so much.
Oh, I know. Oh man. Well, Jesus was a Jew, and I love Jesus.
Most of those people are religious, but I'm sure it happens. They can reconcile that however they deem. But you don't do things to people you don't like because you don't want that treatment in response. And also, it doesn't always make people feel good to be assholes to everybody. It could be a hedonistic act for me to give someone food they don't have.
Sure.
Right? I know that maybe that doesn't sound like strict hedonism, but it's certainly...
Going around and saying, hey, everyone drinks on me. That's kind of hedonistic.
That's absolutely.
But it's beneficial to a lot of people.
Sure.
This is like the weirdest cherry picking point to make. I mean, if most people got such pleasure out of just being random acts of kindness, okay, then wouldn't there be a lot more of that going on in the world?
I like to keep my stuff, to be honest with you.
What?
I like to keep my stuff to myself.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's how most people feel.
I know. I like it to go into my bank account.
if getting them drunk is beneficial.
I'm assuming.
I know what you're saying.
I'm assuming
he
they're
means
not...
water in a desert. Drinks
Sure.
on me.
The pleasure of expediency may be fleeting, but it's pleasure nonetheless, and that's something to stack up against the terror and pain of existence. Every man for himself, and the devil take the hindmost, as the old proverb has it. Why not simply take everything you can get, whenever the opportunity arises? Why not determine to live in that manner? Empathy, laws, the social contract, many of the reasons we just listed. Again, It concerns me personally about Jordan Peterson's personality that he genuinely, even as a professor of psychology and philosophy, he cannot foresee mental mechanisms by which we don't want to hurt others.
Isn't what he's reading though, Jordan Peterson saying this like sarcastically, or not sarcastically is the wrong word, but he's saying
that the hedonism is the bad thing.
Right. But so they're making the same argument Jordan Peterson is actually making in the book. He's saying, why not do all this stuff because it wouldn't serve you to do this stuff.
Well, no, I think the argument they're making is they're saying that Jordan Peterson is ridiculous for thinking that without religious structure, people would all give in to hedonistic nihilism. That's what their point is.
Yeah, but everything that they just named is in line with what Jordan Peterson is saying, because they just said like empathy. Jordan Peterson is not against empathy. They said social contract. Jordan Peterson would say that Christianity is a sort of social contract. Like Jordan Peterson is making the argument that the social contract that we've had forever is kind of falling apart, right?
Right.
So everything that they're saying is stuff that Jordan Peterson actually agrees with.
Yeah, exactly. But they just think it can exist without religion, I guess.
Without the things that they just named? Because I mean, they're saying.
Well, they're saying that the empathy and the social contract and all that stuff can exist in a purely secular space.
Right. They're
which
saying
I think
religion.
maybe it can now, but I don't know if it could have.
I don't know that it can. I don't know that it actually can.
I think it can for some people.
Citation needed.
If we're going to put an asterisk on it. Yeah, I think it can for some people.
Right, yeah.
It speaks to me to a certain sense of, like, does he just feel like the only thing keeping him from doing these things is some higher power? Is that...
Well, it's dumb because it's funny because we were just talking about this in the last stream with Matt, is that the whole reason Peterson is so interested in communism and the Nazis is because he's trying to understand what turns a person into a monster. So that's the perspective that he's coming from everything, basically, is that anyone can become a Nazi, anyone can become a monster. So it's kind of like they're just saying, oh, that's ridiculous to have that fear. And it's like, really? I mean, we look at our history. You could, even from their perspective, don't they look at Trump and say, oh, he's just a terrible racist? And all the people that support him are all terrible racists? Isn't that what they would say? So don't they see exactly what Jordan Peterson's saying? And they don't realize it?
Yeah, that's what I'm pointing out. There's a meme in anti-theism I've called rationality rules out for saying it, that religion turns people into bad people. The meme is good people will be good people and bad people will be bad people but to get good people to do bad things takes religion. You've heard this before, right?
Yes, yes.
The there's a name for people for good people that do bad things. It's called bad people. Like the whole point of religion is to turn bad people into good people. Like the idea is you come from the perspective that we all are selfish, egotistical, bad
Right.
people. And religion turns us into selfless cooperators, which
Right.
that is a fundamental problem with anti-theism, is that they don't understand that religion, sure, there are people that don't need religion because they're already good people. I totally agree there. But there are bad people.
Right.
Like, how do you turn those bad people into good
Well,
people?
and I say it's even broader than that, because it's not, I don't think it's a question of necessarily that they're individual good and bad people. I think it's also a question of, going back to the Nazis, it's that when you get groups of people together, it's so much easier for them to be bad people,
Yeah.
even if they're all individually good people.
Because the accountability goes out. They're like, no one will catch me. I'm
Exactly.
in a mob. Look at this. I can do anything.
Exactly. And what does religion do? But it kind of gives every person an individual responsibility. It's like, oh, there's an all-seeing, all-knowing entity that knows you as a specific individual, and it's
Yeah.
holding you accountable for your actions.
Yeah. They don't get this. I was watching a debate with Matt Dillahunty and some other guy, and they don't understand that it's just very simple that two people can say, okay, we both agree that this invisible third party, which is infinitely powerful and will punish either one of us for screwing each other over, is like a useful tool, right? Because those
Right,
two parties
right.
go apart from one another, and they both think, boy, I sure would like to screw that guy over. Like, oh, look, he left his wallet in my car. Like,
Right.
but no, but like they think people would just who don't do bad things. Like the wallet is a bad example because it's so small, it's not worth getting into. But then big things come up. Like families always get torn apart because someone wins the lottery. Now all of a sudden it's like, you didn't give me a big enough share.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, and I think this is I think the major problem with this argument is it's kind of like the communist capitalist argument, in that whenever communists are complaining about capitalism, they're typically, they point at a corruption of a system, and they say that's bad. And it's kind of like, and I think if you want to have a constructive conversation with Jordan Peterson about religion, you could say, yes, there is a good structure. There's the possibility of a good structure, and there has been good structure in religion. However, like all systems and like all hierarchies, they tend towards corruption, and you have to be ever vigilant to prevent that.
right.
But the conversation doesn't seem like it ever gets to that point.
Yeah, totally. I'm ready to have that conversation.
Yeah, but see, the problem is they don't want to have that conversation. They just want to invalidate religion altogether. Marcion of Sinope for $5, a straw man, if you will. I trust this reading. Who better to identify a straw man than the beard and beardless Hugo and Jake? I like that. We should call them beard and beardless. It's a good thing he shaved. Now we have like a differentiating way of differentiating them. Ethan Miller for $5. What do we do about people that argue we can't have a good society without religion? I'm talking about the Ben Shapiro types. What do we do about them, Frankie?
I don't know that Ben Shapiro has said many times that he thinks people can be good without religion. He says it doesn't take everyone, but
yeah, but I think he would probably agree you can't have a good overall society without religion.
I think that there is always going to be, oh no, I'm being attacked. Can you hear that?
What is that? Oh,
The fire
ambulance?
station. Hide the bong. Oh wait, it's legal now. Hey. Ben Shapiro, I think that the population is always going to have like 10 to 15% atheists. What I think is bonkers is just that they want the population to be like 90% atheist or something. Like they think that would be a better society to live in. And I don't think that that's true.
Yeah, but that's not the question that's being asked here, Adam. Okay, you're diverting.
What is the question?
What do we do about people who say that you can't have a good society without religion?
That they're going to force you to be religious?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, you tell them.
I do think a lot of.
You tell them to pound sand, man. Get out of my face. That's what you tell them.
You punch him in the face, though. You're saying.
No. I mean, they're delusional, but most people are delusional, like myself included. Like it's just that's part of the human experience. We got to learn to. That's part of the pleasure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think you can make an interesting argument about how you need both the anti-religious forces and the religious forces in a constant battle, kind of the same way you need like liberal and conservatives in a constant battle. Because if you had just religious people, then what would happen is everything would tend towards ultra conservative, strict interpretations of strict interpretations of the Bible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it would have a very high tendency towards corruption of power. And you kind of need the anti-religious side to kind of pull things in a more liberal direction. But if you completely go in the anti direction, then you just lose religion altogether and all the benefits it brings.
Yeah, not the anti-religious people. I really think got well. No, there were several religious people that were scientists. So I mean, they managed to get science going, even though they were religious. So
oh, sure, like the person that discovered the Big Bang, I think, was doing it out of the idea that it would fit with the Bible.
Yeah, Newton was very religious as well. I mean, they wanted to discover God's creation. So, yeah, right. I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal. They're only going to be 10%. So, I mean, the fact that they're the 80%, I guess they're the ones that can get out of hand. This is why the American separation of church and state was just so brilliant.
Right. See, but is Ben Shapiro in favor of government being secular or not?
No.
I don't know the answer.
Oh, yeah, no, he's totally in favor of that. Are you kidding me?
Okay, that's good. Well, I don't know. He's against his 2-year-old son wearing sparkly shoes.
Well, that's normal. That's completely normal.
That was so funny.
All those sparkly shoes is not that big a deal.
On the Dave Rubin, Ben Shapiro it was really weird. He proudly told a story about how his like 3-year-old or 2-year-old wanted to wear his sister's sparkly shoes. He's like, no, those are girl shoes. And then the kid was mad. And then so he took him to the shoe store and got him cowboy boots because those are very manly. And he was like very proud that he didn't let his son wear sparkly shoes because he thought it would make him gay or trans or something. It was very weird.
In this day and age, who knows? I don't know. He's got to be terrified about the trans thing with his kids.
I mean, it's normal in psychology. It's a accepted normal thing for little boys and little girls to experiment in reverse gender roles.
Yes.
Wear their mom's clothing or their dad's clothing. And I don't think wearing sparkly shoes even counts as specific as a identified gender role to a child. But you say, oh, it's shiny.
But in normal times, we would have said that's completely normal and acceptable, and he'll grow out of it. Now they want to put him on hormone blockers. They're like, oh, sparkly shoes, hormone blockers.
He's afraid of the school saying.
Yeah, totally.
There was some. Well, I don't want to get into.
Well, they're in private school. They're in private school. Like he's rich.
Right.
So they're in a private school where they're forbidden to say anything about any trans stuff. So.
Contrast for $5 Aussie bucks. Don't be a Cypher, be a Squall. In this episode, Squall and his sidekick Irvine destroy comic relief Jordan Peterson critics Biggs and Wedge. Yeah, fuck Biggs and Wedge. Nobody likes them.
You're the Squall?
I'm definitely the Squall.
Squall is the emo guy, right?
That's true. I'm the emo, moody bitch who doesn't want to sleep with the hot teacher.
That's hilarious.
That doesn't sound like an accurate description.
When I see sidekick in writing, it triggers me.
Okay, chat, whatever you do, don't spam the chat with the word sidekick.
Well, I mean, that's what I gather from the rest of this chapter.
Yeah.
Which is like 7 chapters in one.
Yeah.
But on top of that, it's I don't know. It's sort of sad that, like, apart from hedonistic pleasure, Jordan finds life wholly suffering.
Yep.
There's
Strong
not
man.
a lot of people that actually, like, take that. Some people might say there's a lot of there's too much to weigh it.
Yeah.
But all of it
Yeah.
seems not only not realistic, but just like, you maybe shouldn't be in the field and maybe just be a customer.
It's
Not what he says. Jordan Peterson says life is about finding meaning. And too many people think life is about finding happiness. And he says happiness
Right.
is a byproduct of meaning, and that you should be
Right.
thankful when you get happiness. But happiness should never be the goal. Just so you guys know.
Right.
odd how nihilistic his view of the world tends to be.
He's a postmodern Marxist nihilist if I've ever seen one.
Despite him rallying against nihilism and not understanding the actual meaning.
Yeah.
Anyway, continuing. Our ancestors worked out very sophisticated.
See, that's so weird because saying life is suffering is not has nothing to do with nihilism, because life could be suffering and have lots of meaning.
Yeah, definitely.
So totally off the base, as if that surprises anyone.
You could make an argument, and Haidt kind of makes this argument in the book The Righteous Mind, that he goes through all the guys that were in war, and they all think that when they were in war, which was arguably the worst suffering in their lives, gave them the most meaning. So
Right. That's a good point.
it's our friend.
Answers to such questions, but
I'll say this. I'll say this to anyone that wants to make videos. It's almost always a bad idea to use white text with pink outline.
I was waiting for that.
It's very difficult to read and it strains your eyes.
Do they put any energy into actually like assessing what Jordan Peterson's argument is and attacking the argument? It seems like they're just reading it.
No.
The reason why. Go ahead.
No, you keep continuing.
The
your
reason why I feel am qualified to do this is I've only made about 1,000 Jordan Peterson videos. So it's like when I make a Jordan Peterson video, I'm looking at his argument. I went through that debate between him and Matt Dillahunty several times. And I was hooked when Jordan Peterson had the podcast with Sam Harris on Truth. But the first time I listened to that thing, I was mystified. But it was a puzzle that I wanted to figure out. So, I feel like I'm familiar with what Jordan Peterson is saying, but on first viewing, I was far from familiar with what he was saying. And I just feel like these guys are looking at it from a first viewing type situation. They're going into it saying, obviously this guy's full of shit. All my friends have told me this guy's full of shit, and my friends are right because they make me happy.
Well, I don't know if I would categorize it as first viewing, because they read the book. I assume they've seen tons of Jordan Peterson videos, but they're just blocked by having and wanting to have this initial impression of him that's negative.
That he's pro-religion.
That he's a pro-religion, conservative who wants to convert everyone. So they're just forcing themselves to see it through that lens.
He's not religious, and he's not a conservative.
It's our favorite super chatter, Darth Fagit, for $9.99. All stick and no carrot makes a very fat and far-seeing rabbit. Very true.
But we still don't understand them very well. This is because they are in large parts
Wait, wouldn't it be the opposite?
Yeah, I was thinking that. I'm like, hold on. If he
confused.
doesn't eat the
All
carrot,
stick
maybe
and
it's a
no
skinny
carrot.
carrot.
Very
I'm like
fat and
mystified.
far-seeing
It's a
rabbit.
puzzle. We have to figure it out. Yeah.
Ethan Long for $5. Oh, I did miss your super chat. I'm so sorry, Ethan Long.
I think he got that backwards. I think it's all carrot and no stick. Makes a very because far seeing, because carrots make you see right.
Right. Okay. Well, we're gonna assume you meant the inverse, Darth. Sorry about that, Ethan. Ethan Long for $5. People, for the most part, are already monsters. Not everyone commits truly monstrous acts like killing people for evil purposes, however.
Yeah.
I think I'd agree with that. I mean, I think as we talked about, I think your biology wires you to be in group, out group, which makes you a monster to the out group.
Innately, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, and
and
in
another
certain
$2,
situations.
and another $2 telling us that we missed your super chat. Thank you, Ethan.
I'm so,
Still implicit, manifest primarily in ritual and myth, and as of yet incompletely articulated. We act them out and represent them in stories, but we're not yet wise enough to formulate them explicitly. This is him just pulling shit out of his ass and saying, the myths of the past, specifically the Western Christian ones, they have wisdom that we have yet to even understand. Again, putting this odd, if he's not religious, he certainly talks like a very religious person, where he's putting this higher sense of wisdom, this high idea of some sort of ancient knowledge of the past that has been lost into these stories. And certainly you can take moral lessons from stories. We do that all the time.
Absolutely.
Aesop's Fables, for instance, perfect example. But that doesn't mean those stories have some intrinsic greater truth than we could ever understand today.
No,
I got to give him credit. He actually understands the argument there. That was a decent articulation of it.
Well, I mean, is it the argument? I don't know, because I'm trying to find in the book the specific section.
He got the argument right, that Jordan Peterson is saying that there's wisdom encapsulated in the thing. I mean, Joseph Henrich talks about this, where when one culture, he's an anthropologist, studied tribes and whatnot, and he even points out an example of, like, there was this one tribe that was just killing it. They were so successful. They were pig farmers, and this other tribe was dying out, and they were like, they had an elder council, and the elder council went to the other tribe to figure out what they were doing to be so successful. And the elder council said, okay, we're just going to adopt their culture. So they did everything, but he focuses in on this one thing, because they were pig farmers. So they sang, the women had to sing to the pigs like 3 days a week or something like that. Now you would think that you could just dispense with the singing to the pigs, right? But they don't know. They don't know what they're doing right. So they just are like, we're doing everything. And sure enough, that culture ended up taking off. But that is the argument that Jordan Peterson is making. Jordan Peterson is saying, in Christianity elicits all of these behaviors society-wide, and we don't necessarily know which behaviors are positive and which behaviors are not. I know that the apocalyptic stuff is bad, though. We got to ixnay on the apocalyptic stuff.
Right.
But, citation needed, further study needed. But these guys, though, that meme is very pernicious. That meme that religion turns good people into bad people is a pernicious meme on their side. Because they think all religion, they think it's all just, it's got to go.
Right.
I don't understand why it being an old thought means it's like.
Well, but
go ahead.
On what their point specifically is, I mean, I'm assuming Jordan Peterson is putting relevance in religious thought because it's been able to exist for so long.
Yeah.
It's kind of like culture. The cultural evolution hasn't got thrown it away yet. So does that mean that it has importance and relevance in terms of building a better society?
I think, yeah, there's the evolutionary test, and they do this in industrial manufacturing all the time now. For the longest time, they try to learn from nature because nature has been through millions of years of evolution. I kind of just I call religions like a cultural product. I think they've been through this evolutionary product cycle and kind of emerged. But on the atheist side, though, they think that they have a different concept of religion, and a lot of it comes down to what you believe religion is. Like, they believe religion is a way to subjugate people, which it kind of goes back to the other, what we were talking about with the other guy. They don't like hierarchies. I couldn't get Matt to say I don't like hierarchies, but they really don't. Jonathan Haidt has tested them on the moral foundation is authority subversion. Like, we all understand there's a time to have deference for legitimate authority. And even, I mean, when you're in the presence of someone that you have immense respect for, like, you want to defer to their authority, right? You understand that they're above you. I mean, we
Right.
joke around about it with this whole sidekick thing. It's the same thing. It's we understand that there is a value to someone being above us, that it increases our survival ability, I guess. I mean, it's an unconscious intuition. So, but
Well, yeah, I think the unconscious intuition is everyone wants to immediately know their place
yeah,
where they exist.
that's a good point. That's an excellent point. But most people on the left just hate authority. Like, they're like, screw
Yes.
you. Like,
Right.
yeah. And I think that's
Well, so
probably
you said they means of subjugation.
yes, they see authority as subjugation. But the thing that bugs me about that is, how can you, if like they really don't like traditional marriages, if a man and a woman want to marry each other and they take on the traditional gender roles, and the woman takes on the traditional gender roles of her own volition,
Right.
like, how can you call that subjugation? It's
Well,
like,
because she has been primed subconsciously to believe.
oh,
in the
I get it. I
patriarchy,
get
you
it.
know?
It's all it's like, then they really,
Right.
when we say it's all unconscious, that's bad biological determinism. When they say it's unconscious, it's good social.
Yeah, because we're talking about unconscious biological drives. They're talking about unconscious social drives.
Yeah, which are virtually the
It's
same
interesting because it's funny because before SJW stuff happened, I would have sided with Hugo and Jake's idea that we could dispense with old things like the Bible, and that people could be trusted to continue onward in the future in a positive direction.
thing. Mm-hmm.
And then when all the SJW stuff happened, and I saw all these people who were supposedly liberals throw away all the values of free speech and free press and all this other stuff that had been a value that liberals had supported, during Vietnam, with the protests and all these other time periods. When I saw a generation throw that all away because it didn't suit them at this moment in time, made me stop and realize why it's so important that we have the Bible or a constitution or these sort of entities of authority that we point to and say, no, we agreed that this is how we're going to live by.
They never agreed to it, though. They didn't throw it away. They never learned it.
Right.
Yeah, it's.
That's what I mean. They don't appreciate it because it doesn't. Because I guess what I'm saying is that when I look at the SJWs, it shows me that people are willing to throw away the values that supposedly they stand for, that their parents stood for, if it doesn't suit them at this moment in time.
This is
if
why
they can.
This is why I think it's a total crisis of authority, because they don't see it as authority. They see it as like stupid old shit.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. I feel for people today. Just the cultural environment right now seems completely toxic to me. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of depressing a little bit.
We lucked out. I'd hate to be a youngling in this time period.
How long is this video? Jeez, we're barely into it. These guys talk a lot.
Insurmountable?
Right.
Just because it's old, typically an old thought usually is incorrect.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some things.
See, there you go. See, it's exactly what I was saying.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Exactly what I was saying.
There's like
I don't. But
gravity.
isn't that? It's totally against evolution, though. It's really against evolution. But they will point to the appendix as if the heart and the lungs don't exist, as if the whole body is the appendix. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know you. It all depends on what you focus on. Because when they say old idea, they're thinking of like, the sun revolves around the earth. Like, you can focus on anything to prove your case.
Yeah.
Any specific thing and just nail your focus on that.
Look, they love each other. Look at that. Look at them looking into each other's eyes. He's like, Hugo, I've been wanting to tell you something.
You know that if we were in the same room on stream, we would be looking at each other the same way.
No,
Okay?
I'd be
Don't
like,
deny.
I'd be like, gay wad, get away from me. Homophobia.
You'd be like, we can't even be on the same couch in the stream. We have to be in different areas of the room on different cameras.
That's hilarious.
They are fine, like they hold true. Later on, he's going to go on a diatribe against facts. I'm not making that up. And I kept remembering this kind of shit.
Yep.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. He is making that up.
During that, where he's... I don't know how people like... I don't know if Ben Shapiro likes Jordan Peterson, but people that are fans of Ben Shapiro and are fans of Jordan Peterson are... It's a pretty round Venn diagram.
Sure.
I don't know how they reconcile when the facts over feels thing.
No.
Yeah.
But it's their feels.
So that's pretty much where it
Yeah.
comes to a head. Yeah.
The biblical narrative of paradise.
So does that mean that we're right? Because I don't like Ben Shapiro.
I like Ben Shapiro, but I don't agree with Ben Shapiro on everything.
I guess that's fair. A more fair way to state it.
And also,
Actually, no,
I mean,
I don't like him. So fuck you.
we're I don't have any feelings. Are you kidding? Feelings are for other people. You don't.
Right.
I mean, I have feelings in my personal life, but I try to separate them from my. I want to understand the world. The world is a puzzle to be figured out.
I just want to know.
I mean, you're the same way, right? Logic, reason, and
Yes.
evidence. So I don't know what
well,
he's
I'm-
accusing us of as far as the feels go.
I don't know. I mean, I guess you could make the argument that Ben Shapiro's facts over feels is hypocritical because, I mean, there's anyone that believes in like a strict religious idea that doesn't have evidence. So that's your feelings of your facts, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Ben Shapiro doesn't have a factual basis to be an Orthodox Jew.
No.
Or, I mean, not Orthodox, so conservative.
But I think
Whatever
Ben
the fuck
Shapiro
he
would be the first person to agree with that.
Also, but then wouldn't that make him a hypocrite to use the facts over feels tagline in other, arguments?
No, he's saying in political life. I mean, the Suicide of the West book, Jonah Goldberg opens up and he says, I believe in God, but I'm going to make an argument that doesn't require believing in God because I feel that all public discourse shouldn't appeal to a higher authority that not everyone believes in.
Right.
Like we should
Right.
refer to the evidence. And I feel like Ben Shapiro is the same way. I think when God comes up, it's him saying, this is my personal life. He's not saying that. I mean, I guess maybe he has said that society's falling apart because we've abandoned our religious. He did say that in the Tucker Carlson thing, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. What
And
a
I guess,
what a
I mean, I'm not-
jerkwad.
I don't watch his stuff enough to know if his religious views influence, how much that influences the rest of his beliefs.
Yeah.
So maybe it doesn't at all. If it doesn't, then I guess it's fine. But if it does, then I guess you have a problem.
Paradise in the Fall is one such story fabricated by our collective imagination. Working over the centuries, it provides a profound account of the nature of being and points the way to a mode of conceptualization and action well matched to that nature. In the Garden of Eden, prior to the dawn of self-consciousness, so goes the story, human beings were sinless. Our primordial parents, Adam and Eve, walked with God then. Tempted by the snake, the first couple ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, discovered death and vulnerability, and turned away from God. Mankind was exiled from paradise and began its effortful mortal existence. The idea of sacrifice enters soon afterward, beginning with the accounts of Cain and Abel and developing through the Abrahamic adventures of the Exodus. Abrahamic adventures is my favorite way one could describe wandering in the desert for 40 years.
Adventures.
Yeah, adventures.
That's nice. It's nice of them.
Nice spin. After much contemplation, struggling, humanity learns that God's favor could be gained and his wrath averted through proper sacrifice, and also that bloody murder might be motivated among those unwilling or unable to succeed in this manner. What he's saying there is, they learned how to be good people and stuff through sacrifice, and through sacrifice to God, they learned to sacrifice things for others, and they discovered that those who don't do that are bad people who maybe should be murdered or might murder you. I'd like to point out, though, within the...
That's not even what Jordan Peterson's point was.
Yeah, you
though.
got that wrong. Go ahead.
Well, his point was that you have to sacrifice something of value now for a gain in the future, which is what the whole point of the chapter is about.
Right. And it was metaphorical when they were obviously when you sacrifice an animal for a bountiful harvest. You're just
right.
He's saying that this is where the concept of sacrificing, like I'm going to stay up late working my ass through medical school, so when I have a nice house and a Lamborghini,
right,
there's a
because it's like I'm going to, raise this cattle. I'm going to spend energy and food to raise this calf, and then I'm going to kill it for no gain, no seemingly present gain, to sacrifice it in a way that I think will help me in the future.
Correct. Yeah, and the concept.
I mean, yes,
began with sacrifice.
In the Old Testament,
This irritates me so much.
the conquests of the Jews are well documented in the Bible. It's not like they were a group that was like just going around pacifists and going like,
Right.
"Hey guys, how you doing?" No, God
They
explicitly
murder
went
people
out.
because they're in the territory that God promised them.
Yeah,
Constantly.
yeah.
On top of that, it's anthropologically inaccurate on every stretch of the imagination. Sacrifice the two gods is based on weather, like literally the rains and shit. It's based on appeasement, and they found a correlation between sacrifice, specifically animals, and good weather or not ill befalling them, let's say. And I got to imagine a lot of it has to do with they end up in the Fertile Crescent.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't know where the Fertile Crescent is, you haven't watched the show long, and you don't know a lot about geography, but there's the Tigris-Euphrates River in Iraq, which is where all of this kind of started, Mesopotamia. There's not a huge part of that world that is super habitable in an ancient way. Like nowadays we can kind of get around that with aqueducts and terraforming and other modes, just trade in general. But back then there's literally a tribe, and it turns out that
what is the point of this? What the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah, they don't get to their arguments. They don't have a well thought out argument against any of this stuff.
Right. Concept Hut for $2. Beliefs are not feelings. That's a good point. That's not what I meant. What I meant to say was that you can't your beliefs, your religious beliefs, typically aren't based on facts. They're typically based on feelings. Is that accurate statement, Adam?
Well, it is a fact that your mom might beat your ass if you don't go to church. So,
right, but that's not your religious belief.
Correct.
So,
things can get pretty volatile, and so going all the way back into that culture, you have the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Great Floods, and they talk about that, and they had sacrifice all the way through that. And it was animal sacrifice. I hypothesize, I don't know if this is true, and no one really knows that this is true, but I'd say it's a common thought among the anthropological and historical thinkers. I could be wrong, but I'm just going to assume that for two reasons. First, vegetables, because of the agricultural revolution, they're seasonal. So you can't sacrifice them all year long, though they tried in ziggurats to put any excess in there. But if you go down to sacrifice itself, and kind of the lesson we learned in Cain and Abel, although he misrepresents Cain and Abel's story to a ridiculous degree.
To the point where I would call it outright lying. He's
Right.
not just stretching the truth, he is lying.
Like he says that like Abel is Cain's like ideal person. That's never discussed. It's literally just the difference is it comes down to Abel has meat sacrifice, Cain does a vegetable sacrifice.
God wants meat.
And God wants meat.
That's
and I
the
think
story.
Because meat is
better than vegetables, though. Let's be honest.
both symbolic.
well, I mean, I would assume the reason animal sacrifice is what was looked on favorably is because it was harder to, and it cost you more resources to raise an animal and sacrifice it than it would be to grow crops.
Yep.
and sacrifice them.
And it's the blood. We want blood.
I mean, well, it's also I don't think they talk about it, but a lot of the animal sacrifice that was in Judaism and in like Greek, what is like the Greek religion called? Like, we
I
say
don't know.
mythology, but what was it like called at the time?
I don't know.
Whatever. Like the Greek and Roman mythology, like they sacrifice animals all the time, and a lot of it was it's supposed to be you kill an animal instead of killing a person, instead of doing human sacrifice.
Steven Pinker lays out where human sacrifice comes from in the book The Better Angels of Our Nature, which it's so clicks when you know it. Back then, life was so hard. People died all the time of disease. People died in accidents, like
Right.
just death everywhere. You're wallowing in death, right? So they assumed that since God created the universe, God liked a lot of death. So
Right,
the
right.
idea behind sacrifice was better him than me. Like there's going to be a lot of like sacrifice going on anyway. So we'll sacrifice some humans here, and hopefully there won't be as much death to our family, which is kind of weird, but it does make logical sense, right?
Yeah, and it does make sense that way, and it makes sense with the way that Peterson's talking about it in terms of if you're sacrificing something of value, what do humans value more than other humans?
Yeah, your family.
Right. And that's why there's that story with in the Bible where God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son, because that's supposed to be the thing of highest value.
Yeah.
And then God says no because Judaism doesn't want you to sacrifice people.
It's the perfect metaphor too, because
Right.
what would be closer to your heart than your son?
Right.
But they just see it as,
And also because it's your biological line beyond the emotion.
they go into this stuff not seeing it as this narrative technology. They go into it seeing God as a character that they must prove doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because they don't believe that Peterson's looking at it as a story with narrative archetypes. They think he thinks it's literal or something.
I mean, he's only said that about 1 billion times. I mean, it's like
Doesn't matter.
you can watch any video
Doesn't
on the
matter.
internet of Jordan Peterson and he starts talking about that.
Right.
What's going on here? What's the,
Danimal Collective 1, thank you very much for the $4.99.
Symbologically speaking, it's kind of what lifted us out of being not human necessarily. Like being able to have the nutrients from the marrow, specifically in the fats and stuff.
He's gonna get in a fight with a vegan now.
Helped human beings become what we are. I mean, there's lots of reasons there, but also animals are available year round.
Yeah.
And it smells good when you cook them. So I imagine they have a lot of these cultural connotations. So that's why the sacrifice is there. I know that was long-winded, but it has to be said. Otherwise, because he's just totally dismissing the actual cultural realities and anthropological realities of why this mode exists and why it gets expanded on in the Jesus myth as well.
Yeah. There is little difference between sacrifice and work. They are both uniquely human. Sometimes animals act as if they are working, but they are really only following the dictates of their nature. Beavers build dams. They do so because they are beavers, and beavers build dams.
That is, wow, science.
What a hot take, Jordan. Okay. Jordan here is trying to draw, for some reason, an arbitrary line between what humans consider work and what animals do.
Okay, this is like one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. How is it an arbitrary line to talk about the difference between biological instincts that make a beaver build a dam and a human making the conscious decision to sacrifice something of value now for a future gain that's not driven by a biological instinct?
yeah, it's in the cultural layer. It's not in the biological layer.
But it's like a complete, like, what the criticize that point of all points is baffling to me.
If it was in the biological layer, though, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all. Because one of the reasons why the SJWs they never learned the free speech thing because it's not in the biological layer.
Right.
Like
right.
beavers, it's all genetic. The building dam behaviors. Like you can take a beaver, like a lone beaver, and put him somewhere where he never learns to build a dam, and sure enough, he builds a dam.
Yeah,
It's
like
pretty cool.
certain animals might do things like a crappier version, like they might not build a dam as well, or they might not hunt as effectively if they can't watch their parent do it, but they're still going to do the behavior or attempt to do the behavior.
They actually believe now that the making those arrowheads, those little arrowheads that they chip out of stone, they think that might have become innate in humans because it didn't change for like 3,000 years.
Oh, interesting. Maybe.
So it was like a beaver behavior. It wasn't a learned behavior.
Right.
It was like, man, make stone, make throwing thing. It's like, that's kind of
funny.
crazy.
Well, and it also, they're not even addressing the fact that all animals are biologically wired to be as lazy as possible,
Yeah.
and to conserve energy. And that's part of the problem it is with being human, is that you have to say, okay, I'm going to overcome that biological wiring. I'm going to make the sacrifice and work towards something, greater in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's people. It's unfortunate because you play video games, people get addicted to video games, and the reason video games are so addictive is because it completely plays on your biological wiring. What it's doing is it's giving you short-term goals that you can overcome relatively easily compared to the real world.
While
so you're
being
tricking your
lazy, while simultaneously being lazy, just sitting
Right.
in one place.
Right. But you still feel like you're accomplishing these goals.
Oh, it's so funny.
So it's tricking your brain to thinking you're doing these great things on a biological level.
Well, you haven't seen me play video
And
games,
that's
so I am actually doing great things when I play.
There you go.
It's amazing.
I mean, yeah, I'm not speaking smack about video games. I'm just saying this is why they work the way they do. And they're not, I don't know, whatever. It's just, this is such a weird point for them to focus on.
He'll often say as well, like humans don't have long-term thinking. They're always like, now. So a wolf will eat 20 pounds of meat, right?
Sure, and this is true to a certain extent. They've done experiments, I know, for instance, in psychology, with apes. If you give them a pile of if you give them a certain amount of bananas, they'll eat the bananas.
Marshmallow experiment.
But they don't have the capability of saying, I have surplus bananas, I should put these somewhere for later.
Sure. Totally.
So humans uniquely in many aspects, I'd imagine
We have forethought, I think, is the unique part of it.
Some things like elephants and dolphins might have the beginnings of some of that stuff.
Dogs are similar,
but
to a lesser degree.
That's more I think, Pavlovian.
I think so, probably as well, but...
But anyway, the point is, he draws a distinction between humans and animals, and he considers work to be specifically tied to the idea of sacrifice, and that's why humans have foresight.
So weird.
It's insanity to say, humans introduced the idea of sacrifice, ergo we learn foresight.
No, what this is we have a concept of time.
Yeah.
And we know that...
sacrifice is really the core concept of forming a moral community because, I mean, that's where reciprocation comes in and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, because you can't have a moral community existing if you're not thinking in terms of how things are going to affect you in the future.
Yeah. I mean, even you and I...
Because otherwise you're just going to grab the lady and rape her right there because you want to.
Yeah, you always think in terms of reciprocal altruism, and you're looking for people who are
Right.
going to make sacrifices now, and then you're going to make sacrifices for them. I don't know how you can get a moral community going without altruism. I mean, they're talking about altruism.
Right, and it seems so weird to me that they don't understand the how you get from sacrifice to work, because that's what working is. It's a sacrifice for the future.
Yeah, a lot of work sucks, man. A lot of the good
like when
stuff
you're making
sucks.
a video, you're spending all that time working for the future product.
I know, and it's
making a sacrifice.
It's a bitch. But these guys didn't do any work on this video, so obviously Building roads, that's some backbreaking work, man. Nice buildings, backbreaking work. It ain't fun.
That tomorrow is a thing. I don't know that a dog knows tomorrow is a thing.
Oh, don't worry. He says right here, the discovery that gratification could be delayed was simultaneously the discovery of time, and with it, causality.
But that's not only it.
No.
Like, he also dismisses, and I know this is kind of nitpicking, but there's plenty of animals that exhibit forethought in a way that is purely instinctual. But bears, for example, squirrels are a really good example.
So he just said they exhibit forethought, but it's purely instinctual. So everything he's about to say is completely pointless.
Doesn't matter, yeah. I don't know. Like, does your dog know it's gonna die? I don't know that he does, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Example, wolves. He cites wolves in here, and I don't know why he didn't just do a quick Google. Wolves often eat more than they can and regurgitate much of it to their young.
Sure.
So that they don't have to go hunting as well. But
What's going on here? What happened?
this is exhausting.
Our ancestors acted out.
What's happening is that they don't understand what he's talking about.
No, I felt like someone walked in on him. It's like someone was bringing lobster roll or something there.
There you
Take the lobster roll, guys. Take the lobster roll.
Maybe you can get some of the lobster serotonin, pump yourself up the dominance hierarchy.
A drama, a fiction. They personified the force that governs fate as a spirit that can be bargained with, traded with, as if it were another human being. And the amazing thing is that it worked.
It didn't work. This is in so many words right now. He's saying basically prayer worked.
He's saying that burning sacrifices was effective.
Yeah, it wasn't effective.
No.
It was correlative. I brought this up again when I read this on stream,
both.
but I think it bears repeating.
Do you think that's what Jordan Peterson is saying? Is that sacrificing an animal to gods actually made the weather change?
Hell no. Are you kidding me?
Because that's what they think he said.
Really? Oh my God. Yeah, it's awful. It's totally awful. Yeah, no, he's saying all the stuff he talks about is in terms of psychology. He's saying that these behaviors became, and if you think about it, you really have to, because animals do this stuff instinctually. You have to think about how we evolved from doing things instinctually, innately, to actually doing things culturally, where things started becoming in the cultural way. I mean, it had to begin with language. Henrik is the guy to go to if you want to know more about this. The Secret of Our Success is an amazing book, and he talks about a lot of this stuff in there. So, but he actually, I believe in the book, uses the Rubicon analogy where, I don't know if you know the Rubicon, but it was a river that if the army crossed, Rome would be at war, and Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, and it's just the symbol for there's no going back from here. And once we started doing cultural learning and not incorporating that stuff biologically, then every generation we had the possibility of losing everything we had learned, because when it's in the genes, it's encoded. It's you carrying the knowledge with you. But when the knowledge is in books, and he uses a bunch of examples of travelers. Like, people have this concept of, like, he even mentioned the big brain thing, which is wrong. Our brains are actually shrinking because we are offloading so much of our knowledge that we don't need to carry in our DNA. And the brain is a huge resource. So it's like, if our brains can get smaller, we are literally moving towards idiocracy. Because the evolutionary pressure is there.
Right. We need the Elon Musk neural lace to put into our brains to save us.
These guys, when they get their neural lace implanted, they're going to be like, oh my God, I finally get it. Holy cow. Delete those videos. Where are those videos?
Knights of the Nine. Knights of the Nine for $9.99. There. Very good. Very good. Everything humans do is on the biological layer. The things you're attributing to a non-biological layer are like birds' nests. just because nests aren't biological doesn't mean it's not biologically based.
Yeah, and Henrik, the difference is though if it's a learned behavior. And one of the reasons why we have the pattern of prestige is because we want to know who to learn from. So we fixate on prestigious people and we learn from them. And we learn a lot of this stuff is like the biological programming. I mean, it's not wrong. The biological programming is like find the most prestigious person you can and learn from them. Copy them until you're successful. The end. Like that's the programming.
Right.
But it's
right. Well, it's what I was trying to say. I think I said it with Matt, but I don't remember what his answer was, which was, oh no, yeah, I do. It was that hierarchies are biological, but then maybe the thing that necessitates how you climb the hierarchy is societal, because that can change with time.
Yeah. Well, to go on the pig farmer example, though, it's the same thing. You don't necessarily know what they're doing to be successful, so you just copy everything. This is the thing that bothers me about the trans thing, because the programming that we have is find successful people and copy them. And if the successful people are trans, they're like, well, I'm trans. Copy. It's just so easy. It's all unconscious. So, I mean, to the point where Henrik even pulls out statistics of when successful people, famous people commit suicide, there's a spike in suicides that are the same gender, age, and race of those people. Which means people that say, that guy looks like me, he's successful, copy, up to the point suicide. That is biological programming. I mean, suicide is not good for your genes.
It's funny because in college I took a martial art, and our teacher told us this story of once he met like another group of people that all studied the same martial arts, and he noticed that whenever they did a move, they would hold their fingers out in like a weird way, and it was in a way that like would be counterproductive in a fight, because if you hold your finger out, you know, it's something to grab onto.
Oh yeah.
So he asked them one day. He said, "Why are you holding your finger out when you do this? When you do these moves?" And no one knew the answer. They only did it because the person teaching them was the one holding their finger out when they did the moves. So he went and asked the teacher and says, "Why do you hold your finger out when you do the move?" And he said, "Oh, I had a stroke and I can't make a fist. My fingers always."
It's so
you had everyone copying it without understanding why they're doing it.
So much of this stuff. I mean, how can you not relate that to the same analogy with biological mutation? Like people start doing it, and either it's a success, like the guys that start doing it and somebody grabs onto it and ends up winning the fight, they don't do it anymore.
Right.
Because they're out of the gene pool.
Right. And it's kind of what like Joe Rogan always talks about when he talks about MMA, is that when it started, you know, no one knew which martial art fighting style would be the best one. So people were trying to do like Kung Fu death touches and all these like kind of, you know, more mystical things. And then it turned out like, you know, the evolution of the ring said, no, everything's about like striking and jiu-jitsu, on the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, when you get on the ground and grapple.
Yeah.
And they were able to figure out what is the, you know, the best thing for that circumstance.
The optimum behavior.
Right.
Yeah, that behavior is learned. Like if you took 10 guys that never saw jiu-jitsu and dropped them in some other place, they would have to relearn it. They would relearn it. But you could argue that if all circumstances are the same, there's only one optimal pattern, correct?
Right. Well, for each circumstance is probably some optimal pattern.
But this is the way that you can look at morality as well. Because when I talk about morality and objective morality, I think of it kind of the same way. You're looking for the optimal pattern for a group to cohesively cooperate together against other groups.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Because I don't agree with when people talk about like universal morality. Though I don't know, I think I might have a different definition. Because my definition of universal morality would mean that the universe itself has morality baked into it. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know how anyone could prove that without God existing. But I think the way you phrase it's the best way to put it, in terms of there are optimal moral strategies and systems for people to, or for societies to engage with if they're trying to accomplish specific goals, like building up a functioning first world country.
Yeah. Yeah. Sustaining a economy that generates a lot of growth, a lot of wealth, that kind of thing.
Right.
A lot of the stuff,
Right.
like a lot of the stuff that we argue about now in the quote unquote culture war, I think would just go out the window if someone invaded America. I think instantly
yeah, definitely.
we would revert. We're like, there's a pattern now that's like, the pattern that's playing out now is like, use the culture war to seek status and power for yourself. But as soon as somebody invades, it's like, okay, fall in line. We need a,
Yep.
who's going to be in charge? We got to kick these guys' asses. So, Ethan Miller for $2.
So what you're saying
Richard
is
Dawkins.
you want to be like Ozzy. What'd you say?
Ethan Miller for $2. Richard Dawkins' idea of memes. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
What were you saying?
So I was saying that you, right now, Adam Friended, is supporting Ozymandias' evil plan in Watchmen to have a fake alien invasion kill millions of people in order to unite the world against a common enemy.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. They don't call him the smartest man in the world for nothing.
There you go.
Of course, ritual animal sacrifice feels like it works, because if it fails, over half the time you die. Right? I mean, if you just every day you burn an animal to the Lord, you have a good chance of surviving in a society in which not many societies exist as is.
Sure.
In the only fertile place within 2,000 miles, really.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna do okay regardless. If you're settling there, odds are you're going to survive there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Now on to Cain and Abel, which he brings up like 3 or 4 times and mischaracterizes.
Separately.
Yeah. Very odd. The biblical story of Cain and Abel, Adam and Eve's sons, immediately follows the story of the expulsion from paradise as mentioned previously. Cain and Abel are really the first humans, since their parents were made directly by God and not born in the standard manner. That's an odd distinction to draw. Clearly, Adam and Eve, if you believe the literal interpretation of Genesis, they're still humans just because they're made by God. Doesn't make a difference really there.
What I think he's doing is a metaphorical human, because they have the full
You think?
I don't know why they always draw them with belly buttons. The Adam and Eve.
Because it would look weird if they didn't have
Makes
them.
no sense at all. I'm pro eliminating the belly button from now on in all religious art of Adam and Eve, of course.
This is the first time they've figured out and acknowledged that Jordan Peterson is talking about metaphorical concepts.
The whole thing's metaphor. I want them to dive. I want them to dive into metaphorical truth, man. I want them to really give us their take on.
Oh, they're not even like a million. You got to crawl before you can walk. Okay.
Their whole channel is a pro evolution channel. That's what's so ironic about this.
Right. What's so ironic about all of the pro evolution anti-theists attacking Jordan Peterson in the first place?
experience, but wouldn't they have become human directly after eating from the knowledge of good and evil? Yeah, like I don't know. That just that seems arbitrary and weird to me.
Yep. Cain and Abel live in history, not eat.
Do we have to break that down? Why it's not weird, or can we just? I mean, everyone's smart enough to understand what Peterson's talking about, right?
All of our fans
We can
know.
just move on.
All of our fans know Peterson inside. It's like it's getting great. You just go into the comment section, you read like 5 comments, and you're like, okay, this is taken care of. Like they're just correcting everyone right and left.
Eden. I take much
Yeah, I've umbrage.
Yeah. They must work. They must make sacrifices to please God, and they do so with an altar and proper ritual. But things get complicated. Abel's offering pleases God, but Cain's do not. Abel is rewarded many times over, but Cain is not. It is not precisely clear why, although the text strongly hints that Cain's heart was just not in it.
No, it doesn't.
Did you read the book, Jordan? The reason is because God accepts meat sacrifices, not plants, and it expressly.
This is the only thing I think that they have a valid criticism in that I don't think it's strongly hinted that Cain's heart was not in it. There's nothing that clarifies that. But then it's weird because then they kind of fuck up their own interpretation because the story doesn't say anything about God only wanting meat and not vegetables. It doesn't give any reason for why God liked Abel's offering and not Cain's.
Yeah, this is bad story writing. That's why they didn't give they didn't give us the detail on the motivation. But
Well, because
his point is that Cain and Abel story is really about resentment more than it is about the sacrifice.
right. But I think you can make the valid point that Jordan Peterson has turned the story into being about sacrifice when it's really a story about resentment.
No, he brings up the resentment all the time. They were saying
No, but he's trying to add an element of if Cain had worked harder, his sacrifice would have been accepted by God.
right.
And I don't think that's part of the story at all.
No, me neither.
Okay. I mean, because I always interpret the story as being like it's the sibling fallacy where you have, the parent treats one sibling better than the other, and the sibling very stupidly becomes angry at their sibling and not the parent,
Mm-hmm.
who's the source of the injustice.
Yeah, they want to be loved more.
Right. But they should be angry at their parent for being a dick and not their sibling for just being successful.
Right. And getting people out of the way doesn't necessarily go as planned.
So what you're saying is if you're going to kill someone, you got to be sneaky. You got to be like
More
Dexter
planning.
about it. Cain didn't set up the proper kill room with the plastic wrap.
Says so. Are you banking on the fact that you hope that the person who is reading this book has not read Genesis? Because that's a lie.
Ugh.
You just lied about the contents of Genesis.
Why? I don't know why they're getting so angry, because it's almost like they're theologically like it's almost like they're having a theological debate. It's like, yeah, dude, I didn't read Genesis either. Who cares?
I don't know. Where is your brother?
Well, and they don't. I don't know if they talk about this because I have the book open in this section, and it says Abel is rewarded many times over, but Cain is not. It's not precisely clear why. And then it says, although the text strongly hints that Cain's heart is just not in it, which we disagree with. But then he says after that, he says, maybe the quality of what Cain put forward was low. Maybe his spirit was begrudging, or maybe God was vexed for some secret reasons of his own. And all of this is realistic, including the text's vagueness of explanation. So Peterson's saying that the vagueness of being able to throw anything into there is part of what makes the story realistic, because going back to the siblings example, if your parent favors one sibling over another, they're not necessarily going to understand why that's happening.
Yeah, I think it's just a plot device. I think it's like
Right.
that way because the script says so. It's just bad writing, to be honest with you.
Right.
But I mean, it doesn't change anything. I mean, one of the reasons why I think Jordan Peterson's interesting is because he's spinning a good story from bad writing. I don't know
yes.
I don't read the Bible.
Yes.
The Bible doesn't really do anything for me. But I do like that he puts the psychological spin on it. I mean, in the book when he talks about Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, it's great. I'm like, this is like a Tarantino movie.
Right.
Now Abel kept flocks and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was angry and his face was downcast. Then he gets asked, "Why are you angry?" And he's like, let's go to the field, Abel. And then he kills his brother.
Bad writing right there. You got to have the close-up. You got to have the close-up of God and him to say, this is why I'm mad.
Right. Well, it's what I said I don't know. I think I said this off stream, which was that I think you could make a valid criticism of Peterson's interpretation in that it's not that he's adding an interpretation that most people don't have to a
Right.
lot of the stories,
Right.
like including Cain and Abel.
You don't know though when you're like parents are notorious for saying because I said so. I
No,
guess
right,
you do
yeah,
know
but
why though, because it's like, you want to start a fire in the kitchen or something.
right. So, but they're not making that point. So,
No.
I don't know.
They're making a point that Jordan Peterson is adding some stuff to change religion, and they're saying religion is not changeable. You can't change it. It's this way.
Right.
But
Well,
he is though.
they're pissed that he added the one section that kind of justifies what his position is, which he did, but they cut out everything after that where he talks about how the answers are vague because, life is vague and you're not going to have necessarily the answer about why someone's choosing someone over you.
It is really about how, like, there is a good way to live, and to say that good way to live is in the Bible adds a lot of authority to that good way to live. I mean, the social justice warriors don't have that advantage. Like, they can't
Right.
say anti-race. They could, though. I mean, the Bible, there's so much stuff in there. You could find anti-racist stuff in the Bible.
That's part of the problem with the Bible is that it is so vague and not specific that you can make it say whatever you want it to say, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think that's where you can make criticisms of what Peterson's saying is that if the Bible is interpreted the way he interprets it, then yeah, sure, it's wonderful, but often it's not interpreted the way he's interpreting it.
Yeah, but
It's interpreted in a lot of malicious ways.
the thing is, though, it's the people interpret it however they want to interpret it. So,
Well, exactly. That's part of the problem.
but you gotta have a sway on the people. Like the problem that they have is they're saying we got to get rid of the Bible because people misinterpret it. Well, people misinterpret it for good and for ill, but it's really the people are either good or bad. So,
or they're twisting it. It's like with feminism, they're using a lens to justify whatever they want already.
yes.
Their post hoc, feeling.
But feminism, the authority of feminism is waning, and I don't know that the authority of the Bible is waning. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's probably waning since, I think the authority of the Bible has waned over the last 50 years.
Oh, yeah,
don't you
definitely.
think?
Yeah, no, you're right. It has.
Yeah.
Which has more authority, the Bible or feminism?
The Bible.
Okay, I'm curious. I mean, to these guys, feminism has way more authority than.
Well, if we're talking like by numbers, I thought, foolish samurai. Sorry, I can't do a Mako voice. For $2 says it depends on the translation of the Bible, which is very true because you get into a lot of problems. There's actually this interesting video I saw recently about what's it called? You remember the giants in the Bible that are really weird? The Nephilim. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
There's a part in shortly after creation where
There's
it's like
dragons in the Bible?
No, giants. That they're these weird people that were like the offspring of angels and female women, and they're called the Nephilim.
Wow.
And it like you read it and you're like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. But then if you look through all the history of it, it kind of you lose so much in the translations, which is that the Nephilim back in the day were kind of supposed to represent all the other religions' gods. Because Judaism did not start off as a monotheistic religion the way everyone thinks it did. Judaism actually started off with believing that all those other gods existed. It's just that the Jewish God was the number one best God.
Wow.
So you lose so much context when that changes over time. Like a perfect example is in the story with the Pharaoh, where you say, why is it that the whole point of the story originally was that the Jewish God was powerful enough that he could leave the region that he dwelled, because back then they used to think that gods were associated with land. So they were saying, oh, the Jewish God can leave the land of Judea and come to Egypt and be more powerful than the Egyptian gods. But that's all lost in the modern telling, which is why you get strange parts where like, well, why did God harden the Egyptian guy's heart? That doesn't make sense. Or why did the Egyptian guy have magic?
Right. Why are there giants?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why are there giants in that terrible Noah's Ark movie?
Yeah, why were there giants?
Because that's what I was saying. They were supposed to that weird it's not a mistranslation. It's just something that loses its meaning over time.
That's funny.
That's the story. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's made clear later in the Bible that meat sacrifices are what God wants. The moral of that story is, at least in the earlier part, God wants sacrifices of animals, not plants. Okay?
Yeah.
And you even later in this chapter
I mean,
tip your hand to
it's funny that they're criticizing him for adding stuff when they're adding stuff because there's nothing in that story about God wanting meat versus plants.
Right.
So, just a little bit ironic. I'm just saying.
The interpretation, though, I don't know. I get to the psychology stuff, guys. All they're doing is just nitpicking. All this is nitpicking.
Right. Well, as you said, they're not interested in the ideas.
Yeah.
They're interested in destroying Jordan Peterson.
But they're not doing it. I'm trying to look up I was going to look at a couple comments on this video.
On the video.
There's probably some good ones, some juicy ones. The Jordan Peterson fans they're going to work on these people. It's so awesome. Sometimes I just sit and read comment sections. It's fun.
Well, so here's an interesting thought is if Jordan Peterson wasn't attacked the way he was, would his fans be so knowledgeable?
No, that's I think not, and I think that's actually a good thing.
Right.
I think people are absorbing this knowledge because they want to use it in argumentation, and that's great. That's completely great. We mentioned it a little in the interview with Matt Green. I mean, sooner or later that stuff has to come into culture, and this is how it comes into culture right here. And these guys are doing a huge favor. I'm glad they're going through the whole book.
Right. That would be an interesting learning strategy for schools if they could frame all the subjects around conflict and debate. Then would students care more about learning about the subjects?
I think they would. Well, the boys would.
Yeah.
The girls wouldn't. Girls don't like.
Yeah.
I mean, hate to blow it for you, but there's this thing called sex differences. Girls don't like competition. That's why they don't.
Yeah, but who cares about what girls want?
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
misogynist.
We're the knowledge.
Patriarchy.
We're the knowledge generators of the future. They just learn from us. Actually, women are
going to get back in the kitchen.
Women are a lot better at math. I re-listened to that thing, that Steven Pinker thing. It's a super old video where Steven Pinker goes through all the sex differences. It's like 25 minutes long, all the sex differences he's going for.
Women are better at math?
Women are better at math. They are. Men are better at word problems. Funny, huh? Yeah, he goes through
so you mean like straight math?
Yeah, symbols and stuff. Because you see, they had to stay. They were back by the campfire where they were divvying all of the stuff the men brought back.
That's kind of weird though, because the stereotype is that if you ask a man for directions, he's going to give you like specific numbers, and if you ask the woman for directions, he's going to give you landmarks. Which would seem to be counter the word problems thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's write Steven Pinker a nasty tweet right now.
We'll ask.
Tell him off. Hey, you're getting this all wrong. Which one is this? I want to look at some comments.
It's Jordan Peterson doesn't understand Christianity.
Boy, they have a lot of Jordan Peterson videos here. Jesus, guys.
Sure do.
But in this section, it doesn't serve your argument, so you ignore that and pretend that the reasoning is somehow elusive.
And not that it grandly matters because it didn't happen in real life, but the problem is that he's going to frame all of his arguments in this section.
Look, listen.
Literally all of them with Cain and Abel.
After we just read the Cain and Abel story there, he says, although the text strongly hints that Cain's heart was just not in it, strongly hints.
It doesn't.
There is not a single line in what we just read that hints anything of the sort. Jordan Peterson is making shit up.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. It's like, who cares?
There you go.
And putting
Ethan
in
Long for $10 in the movie Book of Eli, the evil leader of the post-apocalyptic community, Gary Oldman, who I hope everyone loves, wants the Bible Eli carried to be used as a weapon or tool of authority and influences his and possibly other people.
Yeah, exactly. The Bible beats feminism.
That's right. Where's the post-apocalyptic movie where they're carrying around a feminist
That movie,
Dorkin book or whatever.
that movie freaked me out. Did you see? Have you watched that movie? It's a
I haven't seen
horrible movie, but
I haven't seen it.
it's no rubber, okay? But
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
you probably like it. I don't know. I'm tempted to do this a spoiler, but I don't. I won't do the spoiler.
I know that it's Daredevil.
Yeah,
That's what you're
exactly.
referring
But they don't film it right for it to be that. I swear to God, he's like,
Right.
you walk in on him, and he's like reading a book or something. It's like, what the hell? You need to set it up a little better, guys.
Right.
Those guys made the movie Menace to Society, which is one of the best movies ever.
Oh, you mean I never seen that movie?
Menace to Society is done in the same exact style as Goodfellas.
Really?
They were huge fans of Martin Scorsese. Yeah. So instead of gangsters in, I don't know, where does Goodfellas take place? Chicago. Instead of gangsters in Chicago, it's gangsters in Watts, like black gangs. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a great movie.
Isn't Goodfellas the best mafia movie of all time?
Well, people would say Godfather. People would.
Yes, I feel like Goodfellas is so much better.
No,
than
I
Godfather.
totally agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But people go for the crowd. I like rubbers,
Like
so obviously I'm like,
So you have
I give a
terrible taste.
middle finger to the crowd. I'm like, what? You don't like this movie? Challenge me on how great the opening scene of Rubber is, because I will.
You and Caffeinated Tweaker have terrible taste, I guess. Is what in movies anyway.
Yeah. Don't. Hey, I put a tweet out. Did you Google Beyond the Black Rainbow and look at the images? Have you seen that movie?
No, you said not to, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
Whatever you do not Google Beyond the Black Rainbow and look at the images. The images cannot be unseen. You will think of these images.
He's being serious. This isn't a troll.
Yeah.
I mean, he's trying to get
I'm
you to
dead
do it by
serious.
telling you not to.
I'm dead serious. Like when you go to sleep tonight, the last thing you see, well, no, you won't even be able to sleep. Forget that. You'll be like, lights on tonight, honey.
You're attacking our loyal viewers. How dare you do this to them?
I told them not to. Don't do it. Whatever you do. Beyond the Black Rainbow is
in the
what it
hopes
is.
that people won't check it.
He's trash.
Moron.
Trash.
Anyway, maybe the quality of what Cain put forward was low. Maybe his spirit...
Not maybe, it says that.
Or maybe God was vexed for some secret reasons of his own.
It's not secret.
He wants meat.
He literally says, if you do good, good things will happen. If you do bad, bad things happen.
All of this is realistic, including the text vagueness.
He didn't say that in the story, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Are
Also,
you reading
Goodfellas
along
takes-
now?
No, I mean I have the Bible, the Cain and Abel story open.
Okay.
There's no explanation for why God liked Abel's sacrifice given in the text.
Now,
I mean, I guess they're looking at other stories and trying to infer.
Now, when you want to read comments that are from smart people, you got to order the newest comment first, because all the lemmings at the top of their comment section are just like, Jordan Peterson is such a drama king. Oh, uh-oh.
I think Goodfellas takes place in Long Island in New York,
Oh, really? It is New York.
so not Chicago.
Of explanation.
It's not vague!
Not all sacrifices are of equality. Furthermore, it often appears that sacrifices of apparently high quality are not reward for a better future, and it's not clear why.
Yes, that's exactly the fat of the firstborn. The firstborn is held to high esteem in both animal and humankind in the Jewish tradition that is known as the Old Testament. The firstborns are like the most important thing. So giving God the fat from the firstborn of your flock is the literal most important thing you could possibly give him. Are you dumb?
Okay, so this is really stupid because they're yelling at Peterson for adding things to the story that aren't there. There's nothing about Abel giving the firstborn calf. It just says, oh, no, it does say that. Never mind. It does say that. It says Abel brought up a fat portion from some of the firstborn of his flock. But what they're not understanding is that the whole point of was what Peterson just said, is that you can sacrifice your work, your work of high quality. So Abel's sacrificing the firstborn, calf, and Cain is sacrificing, his first bushel of crops or his best crops or whatever, and yet he's not rewarded for it. And that's the point, is that in life it's not always clear what brings you success.
Don't lose hope.
Right. Don't go off and because you're working hard and someone else and you get passed over. Okay. Don't go
Yeah.
and kill the person that, is succeeding.
It's all about resentment. This whole chapter is about resentment.
Right. Right.
Yeah. He also makes the case that Abel, who got axed? Who killed who?
Cain kills Abel.
Cain kills Abel. So he said Abel was making it look easy too, and that really pissed him off. He's like, God damn it, he does it so. This is the way I feel about you. You're always making it look so easy.
What are you talking about? You're blazing ahead of me.
Yeah, but I'm just clipping shit up, man. You're making that last video you did was, it was genius. God damn it.
And it didn't get very many views, so I guess that's where my genius gets.
Well, your
me.
thumbnails just suck.
That's
where
thumbnail.
It's all in the thumbnail, man.
It's all in the
Put some cleavage in there.
Yeah, if you guys see my thumbnails change
dramatically,
in the future, it's because I'm gonna have Adam is going to be my thumbnail consultant from now on.
Lasers, day one.
Why isn't God happy?
Why isn't Jake happy? It's Jordan Peterson's fault.
What would have to
So
change to
loud.
make him happy? Those are difficult questions, and everyone asks them all the time.
No, I've never asked myself that.
No.
I've never been like, how can I make God happy today? 'Cause he not real. Wait. Someone Photoshop a fedora.
Oh yeah, we will.
To share does not mean to give away something you value and get nothing back. That is instead only what every child who refuses.
So, do you think they literally don't understand what Jordan Peterson's saying, or are they just being disingenuous?
Both. Can they be both?
I guess it could be both.
They're
You
not
could-
even
you could
trying
literally not
though. They're
understand.
not even trying to understand.
That's true.
To share fears it means. To share means, properly, to initiate the process of trade. A child who can't share, who can't trade, can't have any friends, because having friends is a form of trade.
I'd say in a conceptual bubble, okay.
Jordan Peterson,
So he completely understands what Jordan Peterson just said, but he's about to find reasons to hate on it. That's the subtext of what he just said. Throwing it out there.
He threw in the God thing too. Did you catch the God thing? God
Yes.
doesn't exist.
Right. But I meant in terms of the you have to share in order to gain friends, I guess. So that's a form of trade because you're getting something back.
Yeah.
You're getting popularity back. Which I don't think there's anything conceptually wrong with looking at it that way. I mean, you can say that's the most cynical, pragmatic way to look at it, but that's life, isn't it?
I don't know. It's not a big deal, really, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. I mean, we're all adults here.
They're gonna make it a big deal.
Oh, okay, good. I can't wait.
either has very few friends,
Right.
or the friends he has are on a very
we've
quid
talked-
pro quo basis.
We've talked about how he values friends in the past in
Which
this
is
very
just-
book, which is very lowly.
Yeah.
So, I'd say, socially speaking, there is a give and take to every relationship almost, but, not in that
So he agrees.
way.
Not to say that it is a trade, not to bring
Right, it's-
clinical weird. People enjoy companionship. They enjoy having fun.
See, so this is basically a situation. I think we've talked about this. I don't remember what it's called, where they understand his point and they agree with it, but it feels wrong to them.
Yeah, because
don't
they
know
hate
why.
Jordan Peterson.
Exactly.
What do you think would happen if they came out and were like, "Hey, we were wrong about Jordan Peterson," and they made a, that guy Easy on Me made a negative Jordan Peterson video. What happens here is someone makes a negative Jordan Peterson video and their channel cycles in exactly the same way. Like all the Jordan Peterson fans go away, but all the Jordan Peterson haters flock to them. So it's just
Right.
it's just kind of a cycling of the audience. And I'm looking at this, I'm amazed this has close to 50,000 views. So these guys are really there's a market for hating on Peterson. And it's great because it doesn't have to be logical or evidence-based or anything. You just have to say you hate Jordan Peterson.
And I think aren't there anti-Jordan Peterson videos their most viewed videos on average?
No, not really. I mean, Jordan Peterson has 1.6 million subscribers. So I think that there's 1.6 million people out there that like Jordan. Well, it's probably more that just aren't. Well, maybe. I don't know. It's tough to say.
But I mean, if you look at their videos on other topics, I don't think they get as many views as they do from the anti-Jordan Peterson video.
Oh, you're saying, yeah, Jordan Peterson's a draw, but I mean, I would say that's more. Well, it's tough to say if it's algorithm or interest because they both kind of feed off each other.
That's a good point.
I mean, Jordan Peterson has a thing going for him now in that he's got the prestige markers. When you see him in front of a bunch of people talking, you're like, prestige, copy, prestige, copy. Like he was talking on Joe Rogan about how people come in dressed in suits now. And I was thinking, yep, that's it. Prestige copy, prestige copy. When you see the world this way, it's a little like peeking behind the curtain. It's a little like seeing the code in the Matrix.
That's how you be the Neo. You understand the prestige copy mechanism that drives all humans.
Yeah. Henrik has said people don't copy based on dominance. People only copy based on prestige. But prestige is competence. That's how you get to the top of the hierarchy.
Right. You know, it's interesting. I had a friend who we used to always get these political arguments with because he had like a lot of very right-wing conservative political beliefs. But then it seemed like he had a lot of left-wing beliefs. Like when you actually like broke them down.
Is this me?
So I'd be
are
like,
you talking
why
about
are you...
me?
No, it's not you. So I'd be like, well, why are you? I don't understand why you say that you're Republican if you believe all these like liberal ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And after really getting to the core of the issue, he said, well, it's because growing up, the people that I looked up to that I saw were successful all identified as Republican.
That makes sense.
I was like, oh, I never thought about it in terms of the way you're saying it. So that's the prestige copy mechanism.
They're copying Amazing Atheist. Amazing Atheist has multiplied. Look, the magic wizard came and cast a spell and split him into two smaller Amazing Atheists.
Well, smaller, I guess, is relative.
Shorter.
Fun with their friends.
Yeah. Like, Hugo and I frolic sometimes. That's just what we do.
As you do.
We enjoy it. There was no trade involved.
It is better to have something than nothing. It's better yet to share generously the something you have. But it's even better than that, however, to become widely known for generous sharing. Jordan Peterson believes that the highest thing you can do is to share with others and become well known for that, as it increases your stock in the lobster hierarchy.
Okay, but...
That's one of the big prestige cues is sharing. But it's actually a pro-social thing because you get people like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You know, he's going around... He's signed Warren Buffett on, like he's trying to get every single billionaire in the United States to take a written pledge to give away half of their fortune before they die. That's great for society, right?
I know, it's great. So why are they complaining about it?
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna try to destroy malaria. Like the only thing the government is going to use your money for is to get myself reelected.
Isn't that socialism?
Oh, that was pretty cool, actually.
Mary's son, Christ, offers himself to God and the world to betrayal, torture, and death.
That laugh was just too
to the very
loud.
point of despair on the cross, where he cries out those terrible words, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?
Only in one version, of course.
Yeah, Matthew 27:46. That is
Oh
the
my
archetypal
God.
story of the man who gives all for the sake of the better, who offers up his life for the advancement of being, who allows God's will to become manifest fully within the confines of a single mortal life.
If I didn't know any better, I'd...
So before we hear their interpretation, that makes sense to everyone, right? That Jesus would be a person who sacrificed everything, and then while he's being tortured and killed on the cross, it seems like at that moment, it seems like all that sacrifice is for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
right? Is there anything confusing about that?
I don't know. I was reading comments. Tell me. What am I missing here? Jesus
Well,
didn't think it was all for nothing though, right? I mean,
no, but at the moment that he's on the cross and he says, "Why has God forsaken me?"
right.
It's like that would be the equivalent of Cain sacrificing what he sacrificed and doesn't get what he wants.
Right. That makes sense.
Right.
I'd say that if you listen to, like, if you read between the lines, I'm pretty sure it just says Jordan Peterson : then there's an asterisk and it just says fap with another asterisk at the end.
Maybe. That is the model for the honorable man in Christ's case, however, as he sacrifices himself, God his Father is simultaneously sacrificing his Son. It is for this reason that the Christian sacrificial drama of Son and Self is archetypal. It's a story at the limit, where nothing more extreme, nothing greater can be imagined. That's the very definition of archetypal.
I can think of many things worse than what happens to Jesus.
Jesus...
He doesn't even die.
He just goes home.
Yeah. It's I don't know, it's like a real rough day. Granted, real rough day. Yeah. But have you considered Job?
Fair enough.
His whole family dies.
Yep.
Not just his son, but his daughters, all of his sons, his wife. He suffers for months, not only mental but physical anguish. He loses all of his property. And then, of course, at the end of that, he gets all of it back except for the family, which, of course, has to be brand new people. So,
but it doesn't matter. Family are just accessories in the old days.
So what I'm
people who wrote the Bible.
What I'm telling you here is that even within the Bible, people have suffered worse than Jesus suffered. How about the concubine that gets gang raped and then murdered? I feel like maybe a whole night of gang rape is worse.
Look at that!
Beatings.
They've obviously never seen The Passion of the Christ. Come on, you know you cried.
Yeah, but right. Well, I never saw it either because why would I
really?
watch that movie?
Oh,
why would I watch Jesus torture porn?
Oh, it's crazy. It's so sad. I'm serious. You got to watch that movie. It is.
But
it's very moving.
It's baffling to me that they don't understand the reason of the story and the metaphorical reason that's being brought up is that Jesus sacrifices everything supposedly for the greater good in the way we're supposed to do, and yet he's seemingly punished at first for it, and in the worst possible way, which is that he's tortured and then murdered.
Yeah, he's an innocent man. I got to throw that in there.
Then is resurrected and actually is rewarded. So that's the fucking message of the story.
And
And
he is God's whole family. So, checkmate.
Right. There you go. So just to point out their complaint, to point out other sacrifices or other people had it worse, is like, again, completely missing the fucking point of why Jordan Peterson is bringing this up in the first place. Because it's like, okay, the story of Job doesn't teach you necessarily a good message, I think, compared to the story of Jesus.
Yeah, it doesn't have the parallel to the Cain and Abel thing.
And that too.
Yeah, no, he's thought this through. He spent 30 years writing, or 20 years writing maps of meaning. He's like obsessive. He's a little obsessive compulsive.
A little bit.
That's just my guess.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to give the concubine
precedence
over Jesus, and now we are all concubinists.
Now we're into the rape stories.
Praise
oh, God.
Pain and suffering define... Oh, wait, let me get my emo face on.
Oh, okay.
Do I look like Alex?
Our friend Alex? Yeah. Got him.
Squall!
Pain and suffering define the world. Of that there can be no doubt. Sacrifice can hold pain and suffering in abeyance to a greater or lesser degree, and greater sacrifices can do that more effectively than lesser. Of that there can be no doubt. Everyone holds this knowledge in their soul. Thus,
Isn't it? It's funny that them putting this, the idea of the sacrifice and what Peterson's saying, them putting it in this kind of like emo context is the exact thing that Peterson's always railing against. It's like they're embodying kind of the emo cynicism of the 90s of not understanding why responsibility is so important and why sacrifice is important.
Yeah, they're just making fun of it.
Yeah, they're literally the embodiment of the problem that society has. They're the embodiment of the people that are lost and don't have the meaning in their life and don't understand the importance of it.
Do you think so? I mean, they're not
in
married.
that
I mean,
moment. I'm saying in that moment, I don't know them personally, but in that moment of acting like what Jordan Peterson is saying is some sort of emo angsty thing, when it's the opposite. It's a message of, it's a hopeful message.
yeah, it's very hopeful. But do you think
The
they lack
person who
meaning in
wishes-
their lives? I mean, his
I
girlfriend
don't
Sarah called me out on Twitter. I mean, theoretically, they're going to be married one day. Maybe they'll
I
get
have
some,
no-
maybe
I don't
they'll
know
get
if
some
they're-
meaning in their lives. Who knows?
Maybe they'll get some meaning in their lives through their YouTube channel or their marriage.
Is
meaning
YouTube
in their life
meaningful?
right
I mean, I feel like YouTube's meaningful. I like it.
Sure. That's their meaning. That's their meaning right now, is to expose Jordan Peterson as a horrible preacher. Wants to convert everyone to Christianity. And they're fighting the good anti-theist fight.
His secret agenda. That's the thing
Right.
about the anti-theist side, though. They can't even get. I mean, they can't make an organization last longer than 3 months. It's like, and they all these, like, they always try to start conferences and stuff like that, and they always fall apart. I don't know. The MythCon thing might last, but I mean, it's funny that they're drifting away from anti-theism.
Yeah, it's funny because the MythCon thing, I mean, I don't know if it's only because we are so now aware of it, but it seems like it's becoming dominated not by atheism, but by anti-SJW stuff.
Well, they realize that the new religion's worse than the old religion. They're like, oh, God,
Right.
give me the Jesus back, please.
Well, I think they realized, they invited Armored Skeptic and Sargon and Shu, that I think they were maybe some other people the first time, and it probably drew a larger crowd than they ever had before.
Yeah, huge success.
So like, oh, fuck the atheism stuff. We got to get on this.
Yeah, exactly. Atheists hate everything.
Is to alleviate suffering, who wishes to rectify the flaw in being, who wants to bring about the best of all futures, who wants to create heaven on earth, will make the greatest of sacrifices of self and child, of everything there is love, to live a life aimed at the good. He will forgo expediency, he will pursue the path of ultimate meaning, and he will in that manner bring salvation to an ever desperate world. That was a lot of words to say nothing. Life is pain. And again, he repeats the chapter title. Do what is, like, good for you in the long term, not what is expedient.
Okay, but like that sometimes expedient things can be good in the long term. Like, let's be real here, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah, I know. I was thinking, it's just, they aren't, I wish they would just make an argument. I mean, I want to have some intellectuals, like, go
Well,
ahead.
as you said, they're focusing on like weird cherry picking stuff as opposed to focusing on what the point of what he's saying is.
Yeah, it's
I think
almost
that's
like
because-
it's almost like the whole strategy is, if we can, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. If we can say that he has all of these minor and insignificant errors, then the whole thing falls down. But they don't even address the main argument.
Right. Well, I think another reason they're doing that is because, as we saw with the other thing, I think they might actually agree with the argument, and they don't want to. It feels wrong because it's coming from Jordan Peterson. So they're going to instead argue all these weird minor quibbles that don't really have anything to do with anything.
Yeah, it's scary and sad.
Scary and sad. Instead of Hugo and Jake, scary and sad.
Have you watched Owen Benjamin and all that? People keep asking me to make a response video to Owen Benjamin, and he's on a Jordan Peterson hate tirade. But he's so funny, man. He's such a likable person that I can't. Like I'm a big enough person to be able to like Owen Benjamin and Jordan Peterson.
Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, I uploaded a clip on one of my other channels. That's him going on in this like conspiratorial tirade about how Jordan Peterson is a closet homosexual. It's it is
It seems like
it is hilarious.
I would bet you that almost all of the people that are a lot of the quote unquote famous people, or blue check marks, all these people that are anti Jordan Peterson.
They're all
It's kind of
homosexuals.
like with no,
I'm sorry.
no, it's that they're like Matt, and that they get primarily most of their Jordan Peterson information from reading quotes from other journalists complaining about him.
Right. So it's all about the makeup. Jordan Peterson wants to enslave women and give them to incels. Jordan Peterson
Right.
doesn't want women to wear makeup to work.
It's all like this secondhand information that's primed to be anti-Jordan Peterson and strawman him.
Yeah.
So then they just believe the strawman. Ethan Long for $10. It's strongly hinted in the text because Cain has eyes. Because Cain sees his brother's offering is more pleasing to God than his own, and yet he keeps offering up a subpar sacrifice. Hence, his heart was not in it. I mean, maybe I don't know which version I was reading. It's again we have the version problem, so it's possible in some version that's specified, and the version that I was looking at is not specified. So, fucking Bible.
It just
Should have been.
it's such
That's
a
a problem. Why
such a
didn't God
minor
write
point.
the Bible in American?
Yeah. Because he speaks American, dummy. What are you talking about? God is American.
Exactly. God bleeds red, white, and blue. Come on. Osiris for $2. The Adventures of Type 2 and Snaggletooth.
Oh my God.
Got him.
I know.
Pretty rough.
Like I used the example of not making a quick judgment, not turning into oncoming traffic. Better for you in the long run.
This next section is called Death, Toil, and Evil.
Did you hear that? Making the quick decision to not run into traffic is a short-term decision, and is better in the long run. Therefore, everything Jordan Peterson said about sacrifice is stupid and wrong.
Yep. Jordan Peterson says, date rape is bad. And they're like, no.
Well, it is bad, but the way he's saying it is stupid and actually promotes date rape.
Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly.
The first sentence is, the tragedy of self-conscious being produces suffering, inevitable suffering. Jordan, you remember you're supposed to be writing a self-help book for maybe depressed people, right? And you're telling them, life is pain.
Again,
inevitable pain.
Life
includes pain.
Life inevitably includes pain and suffering, and it does.
By painting it all with this very, very doomy brush.
Yeah, it's
not good for your incel fans.
It's just so melodramatic.
So, I just was scrolling through like a bunch of different versions of the story, and in one of the versions, it's interesting. After it says, after the Lord had regard for Abel and not for Cain, it says, the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry, and why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? If you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. It desires for you, but you must master it."
He's saying, work harder, bitch.
Yeah, so that kind of, so yeah, it might be, if you're to go through this, there might be more to what Jordan Peterson's saying about.
He's reading shit out of the Dead Sea Scrolls, man. This is Jordan Peterson. Damn.
Yeah, that's right. Jordan Peterson has the Dead Sea Scrolls actually, like in his house.
He owns them. That's right.
Dramatic. It's not accurate to the life that anyone really lives unless they actually, I don't know, like Rwandans for a spell probably actually did live a life of pure suffering.
Yeah.
Or many of them, not all of them, of course, but like there are pockets in history where yes, a certain group of people lives a life of almost pure suffering. You'll invoke Godwin's law later, so I'll do it now. People
Here it
people
comes.
that like 5-year-olds during the Holocaust, probably like when that started, you're just kind of brimming into consciousness. and can form memories, yeah, that's probably a life of suffering. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But everybody, there were people during the Holocaust outside of Germany, even within it, that were fucking fine for the most part. Maybe sometime they would have a day of suffering. Sometimes they'd be just fine.
Ultimate suffering can exist. It doesn't mean you should paint the entirety
That's
of
what
existence as fucking pain.
That's
Remember,
there are
Jordan.
spells of pain.
Doesn't this gets into the whole? It's similar to the argument about people don't. It's not so much that people care about being poor. It's about being poor relative to people that you perceive as being rich,
Yeah, exactly.
which Peterson has talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, I forget what is it. It's the coefficient or whatever.
The fancy suits bug me. I want a fancy suit.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, people care about things in relation to their experience at the moment. So yes, well, it's obvious that someone in the Holocaust, is experiencing more suffering than some, person who's in America in modern times who's depressed for whatever reason. But that doesn't matter because that person who's depressed at that time isn't consoled by the fact that their life could be 1,000 times worse.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't help someone get better.
They always get solace in these religious stories too. I mean, that's when people turn to them. I mean, that's why the slaves adopted the slaves adopted Christianity because they could relate to the Israelites. It's like they suffer and we suffer.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also because there was promise in another life. So if they're slaves this whole life, it didn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there are people even, I mean, you can make the argument that, abolish slavery, obviously, but there are people that are born with like horrible diseases and stuff. Like they're
right.
Like it's kind of nice to be able to imagine that life is fair, even though life is brutally unfair. But they're not even really grappling with that stuff. I mean, religion is for the poor and downtrodden. I mean, that's one of the reasons why it bugs me that these are supposed to be the people like on the left that are the voice for the dispossessed. Yet they want to take the tool that is the most useful in helping the dispossessed away. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. Well, they would say, I mean, here's the problem is that religion has been used in the past to justify subjugation of the poor. And you can make that argument, but you can make that argument without, as you're saying, without throwing out the whole tool, the whole concept as a whole. It's
I don't buy that argument though. I really don't. That the argument that religion unites people to subjugate others.
It's happened.
Are you talking like Spanish conquistadors and stuff like that?
Sure. How about any time that religion? I mean, because
I kind of think that was just an excuse, though, that they were like, "Let's go steal their gold, and we'll tell them we're going to convert them." They're like, "It's the ultimate troll."
Of course, it's an excuse because what religion does is it creates another in-group out-group preference.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The thing though is, as long as the religion has the meme. The beautiful thing about Christianity is it has the meme that it's open to everyone, and also they don't frown on outsiders. They don't kill apostates. I mean, it's really a voluntary. They have tons of memes for voluntarism that aren't necessarily other religions.
Right. But I think the way to conceptualize it is Christianity has a lot of positive things in it, even if throughout the years Christianity has been used for bad things. Mm-hmm. People, because as we were talking about, people always twist whatever they want to suit their needs.
Yeah. My question though is, how can you blame Christianity for that when it's really the people? Like I'm saying,
right? I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Like the people is the root of it. Like the people are either good or bad, and they're just going to use religion as a way to marshal their forces together. Like religion is the tool to form them into a group.
So like a good example would be if you had a group of Christians and they're faced with an outsider who's not Christian, and then they attack them or subjugate them or whatever. So then someone says, oh, well, see, they attacked them because they're not Christian. But then you could say, well, not really, because if they weren't Christian, they would attack them anyway for being an outsider. But since they are Christian, they could at least means that they're at least giving the outsider the opportunity to quote unquote convert to their tribe,
join.
which they wouldn't necessarily do without the religion existing in the first place.
The behavior in this brand of evangelical atheism that these guys have is exactly the same as Christianity, because they're seeking to spread their philosophy in the same way that Christianity does. But the problem with their philosophy is it's just, I mean, it's a paper thin philosophy. It's based on just, if it's true, like it's, I mean, what they don't have, I mean, how is their philosophy give you a way? I mean, they don't have like the archetype that I'm supposed to study and try to live up to. I mean, even in the martial arts guys have more of a philosophy than these guys, right? At least they're like, yeah, you only fight like in self-defense, right?
Right.
Like they don't even have that
prestige. Yeah. They don't have the prestige to copy.
Yeah, I don't. It's fascinating though that they really, really want to spread it, because they're really motivated to spread it.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan, across the street, never down it.
Oh.
That's a cutting joke.
Well,
Cain is
Did they just
outraged by his
hold on.
rejection, of course, speaking of God's rejection.
Hey, did they just make a suicide joke? God, that's crazy.
Yeah, but they said, I don't know, but he said it wrong. So I don't know if he was intentionally saying it in reversed or not.
Oh, because it's down the street, it's not across the street.
Yeah, if you like in the movies, they always cut their wrists
Sideways, yeah,
across.
Yeah, you got to cut down
Which
the
won't
vein.
do anything.
Oh, you got to cut
You're
down.
supposed yeah, if you want
If
to.
you don't want to go back, guys. That's so gross. Beyond the Black Rainbow. Don't Google it.
Oh my god.
His vegetable sacrifice.
the more we talk about this, the more stupid it gets.
Yeah. He confronts God, accuses him, and curses his creation.
Well, at least that's true. Wow.
That proves to be a very poor decision. God responds in no uncertain terms that the fault is all with Cain, and worse, that Cain has knowingly and creatively dallied with sin and reaped the consequences. This is not at all what Cain wanted to hear. It's by no means an apology on God's part. Instead, it's insult added to injury. Cain, embittered to the core by God's response, plots revenge. He defiles the Creator audaciously. It's daring. Cain knows how to hurt. He's self-conscious, after all, and has become even more so in his suffering and shame. Again, he's all of this he's adding to the story. We read you the fucking thing earlier.
Yeah, I
It's
mean
not
that was.
in there.
I mean, there's more, but it's not about the death thing that he's talking about.
So he murders Abel in cold blood. He kills his brother, his own ideal, as Abel is everything Cain wishes to be.
Not said.
Not said in the Bible.
Not even implied. It's not implicit. It's certainly not explicit. It's just not in there.
Jordan, you understand adding things to a story and saying things are in a story that are not there. That is you lying, right? That's not being creative to make a point. You are lying. You are a liar.
That's why this whole chapter, and much of this book, but definitely this chapter, is the reason we're reading this. Like, it's just a religious propaganda book. This is a sermon. This whole chapter is just a sermon. Like, if you would go to a Catholic church and hear these words, would you be surprised?
No.
And of course not.
Conscious human malevolence can break the spirit even tragedy cannot shake. I remember discovering with her that one of my clients had been shocked into years of serious post-traumatic stress disorder.
God.
Daily physical shaking of terror and chronic nightly insomnia by the mere expression of her enraged, drunken boyfriend's face, his fallen countenance, as seen in Genesis 4:5. That's just his Abel's downcast face as he kills Cain. She was more naive than she should have been, and that predisposed her to the trauma. But that's not the point. I think the point is, Jordan, you're saying, like,
Yeah.
she should have known better. And, you know, you could say that in many situations with hindsight. But maybe don't blame your patient when they get beaten by their abusive
I'm absolutely
boyfriend.
willing to grant.
Do you think he's victim blaming? I don't see him victim blaming.
No, it's a completely preposterous interpretation. That's what always happens with when you have someone like Peterson or a psychologist talk about strengthening instead of running away from your problems, or we're looking at the idea that, like a lot of motivational speakers will say, it's better for you if you view all the bad things that happen to you as under your control and your responsibility, because then at least you can do something about them.
Right.
That's not victim blaming. It's just a way of looking at the world that will promote you to make active changes. Because if everything's outside your control, then why the fuck are you bothering?
Why try? Yeah, it's completely discouraging.
Right.
Yeah, this is the problem that I have with a lot of the left philosophy is just it discourages people. I mean, all the racist stuff totally discourages people. Like
Right.
even if racism, like say you have a racist interaction with 1 in 50 white people that you interact with. If you're black and you have like I don't deny that there is racism out there. But then
Right.
like imagining that every single white person is racist, it turns what is a minor problem into a major problem. And it's discouraging. Like,
Right.
why would you want to face a world that is that way? You're just better off. You're better off seeing the world differently.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about.
How are you supposed to believe that you can change the world in any other way but violence, if you believe everyone is inherently racist, if you believe all white people are inherently racist against you?
Yeah.
It's not something you can believe if you think you can change the world through voting and living in a Western society.
So much of the stuff is just it's designed to enrage people's passions to get them voting for a certain block. And I mean,
Right.
the left uses racism and the right uses other things. And what does the right use?
Well, immigration. That's a
Yeah,
big
immigration,
issue.
exactly. I mean, they both do it.
Right.
It's not good.
Grant that every person has some percentage of ownership over anything that happens to them.
It's just
But it's not your fault you get beat.
See, again, they agree with the concept of what he's saying, so they're not going to. That's why they're not talking about the concepts of what he's saying. They're just cherry picking specific words he uses or the way he phrases it, because they actually agree with what the fuck he's saying.
Yeah, that would be
By a
bad.
person.
I'm reading these comments and just they are not in a position to agree with Jordan Peterson at all. They would.
No, yeah, definitely.
These people are just lapping it up, man. Lum, yum, yum.
And I mean, unless you're inciting violence and get caught out, but this is her boyfriend. This isn't a person that, this is clearly a different situation. It blew my mind when I read this, that Jordan, I don't know. It more blew my mind that I had to read it, not that he wrote it.
Yeah.
Well, he's already calling him a
Evil
liar. Go
confronted.
stronger,
This section,
man.
he begins to talk about Jesus in the wilderness, and that is, what are you talking about Jesus again? It's almost like this is a religious book. He talks about the part in the Bible, which did we already cover this?
Which one?
Jesus.
No, not Jesus walking in the desert is coming up soon.
Okay, Jesus tempted in the wilderness by Satan, and in that story what happens is first Satan comes to Jesus, who's been fasting in the desert for 40 days, and he says, why don't you turn these rocks into loaves of bread? Jesus says, no, one can sustain themselves on the word of God alone.
Which is not true.
No.
Don't do that. Also, 40 days and 40 nights is an idiom that we've discussed throughout the Atheist Bible study.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean an actual physical 40 days. It doesn't mean 40...
This is one of the things that bugs me most about all of this anti-theist stuff is they spend so much time with the biblical stuff. One of the reasons I became an atheist was this stuff's boring, man. Why are we learning the Bible? We were talking about to be able to argue, like people are learning these things to be able to argue. Don't you think it's more interesting to be learning evolutionary psychology to be able to argue instead of learning biblical passages to be able to argue? Like
that's why they don't. That's why they don't like Peterson. Is because he's creating a new context or a context people haven't heard of for the Bible stories, thus making them interesting.
Yeah, and their whole point is, but they are obviously fascinated by the Bible because they're just these guys have the Bible memorized. I don't have the Bible memorized.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to give this one to you guys, okay? You're right. The Bible says that.
Rotations of the Earth. It just means like that took a while.
Yeah. So then next Satan says, hey, why don't you jump off this cliff and have God's angels save you? And Jesus says, don't test the Lord. And then the third thing Satan does is he takes him to the highest point in the world, I guess, and shows him all the kingdoms of the world.
Yeah.
Which obviously doesn't make sense in a literal
Because
context.
the Incans do come up in this book, right? No?
No Tenoctolon.
No?
Sorry.
Okay.
But anyway.
That's 2 nights in a row we get to say that.
Yeah, that's the basics of the story. He says, like, why don't you become king of everything you can be? And Jesus is like, nah, I'm good. I have heaven shit. So that's the story for context.
Something about, like, the kingdom of heaven is greater. Or something, like, off this world.
Yeah. Jesus was led into the wilderness, according to the story, to be tempted by the devil in Matthew chapter 4, verse 1. Prior to his crucifixion, this is the story of Cain, restated abstractly. He's now going to try and draw parallels between the Cain and Abel story and this Jesus tempted in the wilderness story that are such a stretch. Even for Peterson, I feel like he was like a second away from pulling this part out of the book.
Even for someone in, like, seminary, I think, like, they'd be like, ooh, I don't know.
This is bad.
That doesn't sound good. You should rewrite that sermon.
Yeah. Cain is neither content nor happy, as we have seen. He's working hard, or so he thinks, but God is not pleased. Meanwhile, Abel is, by all appearances, dancing his way through life. His crops flourish. Women love him.
No!
None of this is in the book!
No!
You're making it up. You're lying.
Also, Abel didn't... He did cattle or something.
Does anyone that reads that part actually think that specifically, that he's giving a literal biblical translation and that he's not, associating it to the idea he's talking about it in modern day life?
No. He talks about lobsters gossiping, okay? I don't think lobsters gossip. I really don't. Like, come on.
Yeah, like he's giving this vague story that's like a paragraph long, context that people can understand and latch onto.
Yeah. Meaning.
And giving it meaning. And to try to make it seem like he's saying this is the literal Bible passage I think is disingenuous.
He clearly didn't do crops.
Yep.
Like, that wasn't his job. His job was either hunter, which I'm assuming, or cattle person. No, it was cattle person, specifically, because it said the firstborn of his flock, which means he was a shepherd.
Sure.
So, no, he didn't have crops to flourish. There are certainly no women, because they were his sisters.
Yep.
I think he's just top lobstering Abel right now for some reason.
I'll tell you why he's doing it. Because he's setting up
Yeah.
for his incel audience. You know, all those Abel Chads out there. I think that's what he's...
Oh, this is super important. I remember when I first heard this, I was baffled because it's so weird because Jordan Peterson literally says the exact fucking opposite of what he's saying. Jordan Peterson's whole point is, you don't blame the Chads for your failures of not getting women or whatever. You need to go out there and make yourself a better person and a more desirable person.
Yep.
It's literally the fucking exact thing you would think they would support. And yet they're completely twisting it around so they can attack it.
Yeah.
doing legitimately. I think he's trying to be like, all those Abel Chads out there, they're getting all the Stacys. I'm using incel terms, by the way.
Yeah.
It's gross when I say them, I know. It feels gross on my tongue.
I like it when Ice-T says it.
Yeah. Anyway.
You think we found an extra Stacy? How can there be so many Chads and Stacys involved?
Let's see what else he can read into the Cain and Abel story with absolutely no content actually being there.
I'm excited.
Worst of all, he's genuinely a good man, and everyone knows it. He deserves his good fortune. All the more reason to envy and hate him. Things do not progress well for Cain, by contrast, as he broods on his misfortune. Like a vulture on an egg, he strives, in his misery, to give birth to something hellish, and in doing so enters the desert wilderness of his own mind. That's a stretch.
The desert wilderness of his own mind. He is cast out.
Yeah. He obsesses over his ill fortune, his betrayal by God. He nourishes his resentment. He indulges in ever more elaborate fantasies of revenge. None of this is in the book.
No.
And as he does so, his arrogance grows to Luciferian proportions.
Whoa!
Good word. I'm ill-used and oppressed, he thinks. This is a stupid, bloody planet as far as I'm concerned, and it can go to hell. And with that, Cain encounters Satan in the wilderness for all intents and purposes, and falls prey to his temptations.
I don't think he does.
No, what a stretch to try and compare those.
So I feel like this is going to boil down to there's either people that understand that whole statement and can completely emotionally understand being in that state of mind and why it's dangerous. And so talking about it and talking about it as a bad thing is a useful service to society. And then there's going to be Hugo and Jake. We're just going to cherry pick it and criticize it and say, it doesn't say that in the story, even though everyone knows that doesn't say that in the story. Therefore, this very helpful, useful concept is wrong. It's interesting. Their reaction to this, it's like a metaphor for the entire discussion of whether religion is useful or not. Because here's Jordan Peterson taking a biblical story and making it very useful.
Totally.
And their complaint is, well, it's not what it literally says, so fuck you.
I'm going to make a t-shirt that says, be resentful, it works, and mail it to him and see if I can get him to wear it. Like, seriously. Be resentful, guys, it works. Makes you very attractive to women.
Man faces world for $5. Hugo and Jake are unable to divorce ideology from the human condition, as if removal of religious ideas would change the human condition and utopia rules.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
that's exactly
true.
right. You're exactly right. I don't think they can. It would be interesting to talk to them out of the context of Jordan Peterson and see how many of Jordan Peterson's ideas you could get them to agree to, because I feel like it would be just off the charts. Like, they probably don't think being resentful is like a good, healthy way to live.
No.
Yeah. The whole, and being able to trace, I mean, it's easy to get resentful. People can fall into resentful is a great excuse for being lazy. Well, we've already said, like, people's ultimate, people would much rather be lazy. People want to know that if they are going to make that sacrifice, it's going to pay off. They really want to know that. But the problem is sometimes
and what
you don't
does it
know.
perfectly?
What's that?
What does that exact thing perfectly?
Tell me.
Video games.
Oh, yeah.
Bring it back.
All the way, yeah. These guys play a lot of video games, you can tell.
Oh, how dare you. How dare you.
I play a lot. Somebody was saying, I saw a video, I think it was Louis Vaughn something, and he was talking about how, like, he was saying you could see how much he's played a video game by his Steam account. And I was thinking, oh my God, is my video game play online? Can people tell how many video games I play? For me, that's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing.
Yeah.
I will guard that information secretly.
Yeah.
I have way too many hours on way too many games.
Stories.
I'm looking.
All he's saying, the only thing that is the same between the two stories is you could read into the Cain and Abel story and say he gives in to his temptation to kill his brother. But that's sort of implicit, not explicit, and it doesn't say that in the text whatsoever. He just gets mad and kills him. Because God's frankly being kind of a dick about, they clearly had to have someone growing vegetables, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, this is when in
So basically, Jordan Peterson could rewrite his entire philosophy, or this entire book, but not use biblical stories as a frame of reference. And they would have absolutely no problem with almost anything that he says.
Yeah, I agree. They just don't want the Bible being revised. But the Bible, this is what I don't understand about. They seem to have this real cognitive disconnect about how it's very difficult to establish authority with people.
Exactly.
And the Bible is just a great tool for doing that. I mean,
Right.
they take the example in one of the debates of Elvis Presley's guitar. And I mean, it is kind of amazing how humans just, they have this reverence for things that are old and have like a story behind them. And the Bible has that. It's survived for centuries. It's been debated for, like, it has this totally rich history that just gives it all this social power.
Right.
But that
Yeah, I
power
was gonna say-
scares them.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if he rewrote all his stuff without the Bible stuff, it would be significantly less interesting to most people,
Yes.
and he'd have a significantly smaller following.
And he wouldn't have sold 2 million bucks.
No, because you need, as you said, you need that authority structure. So here you have a person that's using a pre-existing authority structure and interpreting in a way that I think is very interesting and good for the betterment of society
Helpful.
and helpful. And they're completely blind to that.
Yeah, because they just don't like it. And they hate authority too. That's their job to challenge
Right.
authority. They don't like the fact that everyone loves this. They're contrarians. I mean, I'm a contrarian. I like the movie Rubber. I mean, come on. I have a contrarian streak in me too, but they just picked the wrong side of this.
In the Bible study, we talked about Cain gets driven out, and then he says, anyone who sees me is going to kill me. Which led us to think, who the fuck else is there?
Yeah.
You're the first people that were born. Mm-hmm. But that's besides the point. And then the Lord says, not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. And then he gets the mark of Cain, and he heads into the land of Nod, east of Eden, which is a famous thing from an author that we made a joke about, but I can't remember. And then he makes love to his wife, and she gets pregnant with Enoch, and then it goes into chronological genealogy. So I just don't know where you're getting this information from, Jordan.
His butt.
His butt?
His butt.
That was so pure and cute. He got it from his butt. I love that.
I'm glad you're laughing now. Because here's the rape apologist part.
Oh, God.
Soldiers who develop post-traumatic stress.
Does anyone in the chat actually think that the next part is going to be a rape apologist?
Yeah,
part?
exactly. Jordan Peterson fully supports rape, right? I mean, we all know this to be factual. He's like,
Yeah, definitely.
Stress disorder frequently develop it not because of something they saw, but because of something they did.
I wonder if that's true.
I don't know. There are many demons, so to speak, on the battlefield. Involvement in warfare is something that can open a gateway to hell. Now and then something climbs through and possesses some naive farm boy from Iowa, and he turns monstrous.
This is, for the record, anyone who does anything evil in war, he immediately gets them past it. You don't worry about the guilt. It's not necessarily your fault.
No, listen, he says...
I know, it gets worse.
The characterization of some naive farm boy from Iowa,
They
and
cut
he
something
turns
there. Did you
monstrous.
see
He
that?
does something terrible. He
No.
rapes and kills the women and massacres infants of my lie. And he watches himself do it, and some dark part of him enjoys it. And that is the part that is most unforgettable. And later, he will not know how to reconcile himself with the reality about himself and the world that was then revealed. And no wonder. Jordan, I'm not concerned about the PTSD of the insane rape.
Okay, so this is timely because this is the exact same issue we had or that Matt had with what Jordan Peterson was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So he's explaining a psychological phenomenon that turns an ordinary naive person into being a monster.
Mm-hmm.
And since he frames it that way and doesn't say they're totally 100% evil, since he doesn't do make the proper sacrifices and male Harrys he's supposed to make, they therefore then twist it around to think that Jordan Peterson is advocating for the monstrous thing that the person becomes.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. Why do they do that? What is the goal? I mean, obviously the goal is just to make Jordan Peterson look bad, but I
Well,
mean,
there you go. That's the answer.
misrepresenting somebody looks pretty bad too. That's what most
Right.
people get upset about Jordan Peterson haters, is that they're just misrepresenting him. But that's kind of the
Well,
goal.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it makes defending him usually so easy because as no one they don't ever really criticize what he's actually fucking saying 90% of the time.
Yeah.
They're criticizing this weird version of what he's saying. That's often the exact fucking opposite of what he's saying. You know, uh, does he have to say that rape is bad in the context of explaining a person becoming some sort of monster in the field of war? I thought that was implicit, because he's talking about something that's dangerous. It's a fucking warning sign. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be a warning sign. It wouldn't be dangerous if what he was doing was good, would it?
And also he's talking about how the person can't forgive themselves for being that monster. Right?
Right.
Yeah, he's saying this tears them up
Or
inside.
that they might. Yeah, and if they're not, since they're not, and that's it's. I think you brought this up with Matt, is that if you're not prepared for that idea that everyone has the monster, the animal lurking inside, then it makes it so much easier for you to get sucked into that position because you don't have a defense ready for it.
There's a book, A Long Way Gone, which is a riveting book. It's about child soldiers in Sierra Leone, and they walk through the kid becoming a monster. Like the book starts off, he's walking with his friends. They're going to a village that's like miles away. It takes them all day just to walk there so they can compete in this rap contest. They love rap music. They think America is all rap gangsters. It's hilarious. And while they're gone, the rebel soldiers come into their village and kill everyone and burn all their houses down and everything. So they're like, oh shit, we got to get back. We got to get home. And the war is just erupting around them. They finally get back to their village. There's nothing there. And they're just like 5 boys wandering around. But nobody wants to take them in because boys are dangerous. They're killers. And then by the end of the book, you realize why nobody wants boys around, because it gets crazy. So, but he ends up killing a bunch of people. Like they turn them into soldiers, and they're high on cocaine all the time, and they're murder machines. And after the UN comes in and appropriates them, they have to go back to normal life. And it's exactly what Jordan Peterson is talking about here. Like the kid ended up speaking at the UN about the dangers of child soldiers, and some lady in New York actually adopted him and got him out of Sierra Leone. So he went to college. But imagine sitting in your college classroom or listening to these fucking Jake and Hugo here prattling on about their nonsense when you're like, hey, guess what? When I was 12, I killed like 100 people. Like he talked about how people looked at him like wondering, this guy, is he a killer?
Right.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, he experienced that resentment towards the world firsthand and how powerful it is.
But when they turn them into monsters, what they do is completely logical, man. They tap into the resentment. They're like, you want to get even with the people that killed your family, right? Like people came into your village and killed you. They're like, you want to imagine that these people that we're fighting with are those people. And that's what they do.
Right.
They're like, my whole family is killed. I'm going to find the guy that did it and get even. Yeah.
Right, because it feels good to have a target that you can attack.
Oh man, they round up. The UN comes in and rounds up a bunch of boys, and they take them to like some boys' home or something like that. And one of the kids still has a grenade in his fucking jacket. They end up attacking like the chef, and they cut off a couple fingers or something like that. Like imagine working at a chef at like a UN's boys' home and going home missing a couple fingers because the kids get out of hand. Oh God, it's crazy.
There's nothing more dangerous than when your out group is like the world. because then it's just everything's justified.
It's in Sierra Leone. It's like rebels against army. So I mean
Right.
they have very specific defined lines. But how easily the world breaks down into that, it really is. I mean, Jordan Peterson talks about that with the Gulag Archipelago stuff, and how it's like the big revelation in the end is that he could have been on either side. He really could have. He could have been a monster
Right.
on either side.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why you always have to. That's why I always said, you don't necessarily agree with me when I say that. The horseshoe theory, the type of person you are matters more.
It
Because
does.
you can always when you're the monster, you can always be the monster on either side.
Do you know the story of that Vietnam vet that he murdered a guy, killed him in battle, and the guy had a picture of his like family in his pocket, and the soldier took the picture. I think it was his wife and daughter. And that just totally fucked the guy up, man. He's like, I killed this guy.
Right.
He's never going to. Oh, man. I'm like tearing up. I'm full Jordan Peterson here just talking about it. It's pretty crazy. He finds the daughter and gives the picture back to her. Oh, God. It's riveting. And the daughter totally forgives him. She's the guy that murdered her dad, and she never saw her dad again. God.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff Jordan Peterson is talking about, and they're just completely just oblivious to it. It's like
Right.
These guys should read A Long Way Gone, man. He was having that kid was having nightmares, man. He's barely 18 years old. He's in the United States. He's like, just the things. Like I'm sanitizing it here. The things that they do in that book are ridiculously monstrous.
Right.
Ridiculously monstrous. Think of how bad it gets on the playground, on the school playground. Now imagine no rules and guns and people telling you to kill people.
Right.
Oh God.
That same kind of fucked up child view of the world.
Yeah, remember you were talking about how the Boy Scouts, the older boys, would beat the shit out of you and stuff?
It was the middle scouts that were the problem.
Yeah,
not the-
see? Well, imagine no rules.
Yeah, I know.
And imagine just the most terrible things you could possibly think of.
Right, right.
And they're all drugged out. They don't care. Oh, God. Ugh.
Yep. Ethan Long for $5. Yep, Kane totally couldn't trade a portion of his crops for livestock and make of that an offering unto God. Yeah, there you go. See, why weren't you there, Ethan? You could have saved the whole situation. If Kane hadn't been, if he had been thinking pragmatically, if he had been thinking about the facts and not his feels, he would have realized, hey, I could just trade my brother some of my crops for his meat and sacrifice that to God. Problem solved.
That comes in the later chapters, actually, when he gets into the capitalism.
That's funny. It's a good idea, though. It's a very good idea. Man Faces World for $5. Woke. Cowboy Bebop. Joke. Live action Bebop. That's true. They're making Cowboy Bebop live action on Netflix.
I know. Is it any good?
Terrible.
It's terrible. Oh,
No, it's not out yet. But I'm assuming it's going to be
be terrible. I kind of like the Ghost in the Shell movie. I know I'm not supposed to say that publicly, but I didn't think it was that
You
bad.
did? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I thought it was okay.
I mean, I never liked the original. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I haven't
Really?
seen the original.
Oh man.
I haven't seen the original, so I only saw the movie, and I was like, "Oh, this movie's kind of boring." So, and then Bespoke is Cowboy Bebop, 12 episodes for life by Jordan Peterson. Yes,
I would love to get a reading list of all the books that these guys have read.
I want to get the watch list of all the anime that Jordan Peterson watches.
All the ASMR channels that he subscribed to, that Jordan Peterson subscribes to, right? Tammy comes in and like, Jordan, if you're watching another ASMR video, it's over.
I want Jordan Peterson to do a full analysis of the first 9 episodes of Gurren Lagann on the character of the masculinity of Kamina and how he embodies the perfect male.
This is why you don't have 1 million subscribers.
I know.
I'm telling
No.
you. Anime is a
No,
very
it's true.
niche audience. It really is. Like
No,
seriously,
no,
I
it's
could
not. No, that's not true. Because if you look at, there's so many people that just do anime reviews and they get hundreds of thousands of millions of,
Oh,
of
really?
views. Yeah, it's the combination of anime and video games into this stuff.
in politics.
So I'm
yeah.
like, I'm shooting for like the fucking, the needle, the thread of it, the hole of a needle here.
It's the Motley Crue Britney Spears concert, right? It's like
Right. Yes, it's a combination that not a lot of people go for.
that makes sense. Pragmatic culture for
Rapist,
$10.
murderer.
Oh, did
You keep cutting me off. Pragmatic culture for
go for it.
$10. The problem with Cain and Abel was that Cain couldn't offer the fruit, but it had to be the best, freshest fruit, not the stuff that fell on the ground, which is what Cain actually offered. Oh, really? Does it say that in between the lines, or I don't know?
I don't know.
We'll have to phone up Hugo and Jake. What's up, pragmatic culture?
Yeah.
Who is under the guise of the U.S.
God.
military going to another country
Yeah.
and raping the locals.
Yeah. No.
They okay.
Good.
They might get PTSD from that. They're still a fucking monster, and it's not the war that made them do that. You don't just one day wake up and go, I think I'm gonna rape somebody. That's a proclivity that's probably already in you somewhere. And the fact that you're willing to give this amount of slack to someone who goes to a foreign country, rapes and murders people, and you feel bad for the rapist? What?
So I think this is very interesting. It kind of illuminates maybe why people like Hugo and Jake have such problems with Jordan Peterson explaining the process of how someone becomes a monster, because he wants to believe, oh, if you're in a war situation and you kill people, innocent people, and you rape innocent people, it must be that you were already a monster somewhere deep inside, even if you didn't know it.
Right.
He doesn't want to believe that he's capable of those horrible things in the right
These guys
situation.
would so be raping it all over the place. Are you kidding me? These guys would be all over it. Don't kid yourself, Hugo and
Right.
Jake.
But so they just don't. They want the comfort of
I'd say
believing
it's
that
like
they would
the
be the hero.
self-righteousness, really. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Should we bring up who?
A lot of the dastardly stuff that they did in that book was like putting each other up to it, which was like the first guy that he ends up slitting his throat was like they pretty much say, okay, you're gonna slit this guy's throat or we're killing you. Right?
Mhm.
So I mean, Hugo and Jake live in a world though where they would go, no, I'm going to live by my principles, right? You're dead. Okay, bring the next guy out.
It's such a dangerous way to look at the world, and to not accept that idea that every person can become the monster, because that's what lets the SJW crowd become the authoritarian fascist, because they think that they're not capable of becoming the authoritarian fascist.
That's so hilarious.
And it's interesting because you think they would be on board with that, because that's the complete social constructionist view. Society is the situation is warping you to become something. They should be all on board with this.
They have
Who he doesn't
they have
feel
a
any
scene in
sympathy-
Sicario 2 where that exact thing unfolds. Have you seen Sicario 2?
I haven't seen either of them.
Yeah, Sicario 2. It's really I like gangster movies, but you like gangster movies. You said you like Goodfellas, so Sicario is a Mexican hitman. Sicario 1 is amazing. Sicario 2 is actually pretty good, but not amazing.
I thought it was about the drug smuggling or something.
Yeah, there's a political aspect to it too. But there's a kill or be killed scene, which
Right.
I mean that's the ultimate moral quandary. And the reason that they do
Well, so
that is to solidify you in the group, because you got blood on your hands. I mean, there's a completely lot. It's painful, but evolution is deviously rational.
Well, it has to be. There's no way for it not to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, wait a minute. Let me back up from that, because there's some in the way that you're talking about. Yes, it is. But I mean, you could make the argument that, like, so, the Hugo and Jake would make the cherry-picked argument from what you're saying about, well, giraffes, they die because since they evolved, their organs from, like, the blood from their neck has to go all the way from their head, and it has to go all the way back into, like, their stomach and then go up into their heart. And that's why they die, because it doesn't go directly to their heart, because they evolved from some other animal that had a system that made sense. So that's not rational.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how Hugo and Jake would respond to what you just said.
Yeah, I don't know. The design of,
but the archetype of what you're saying is that makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Sympathy for whatsoever.
The raped person.
Well, not just that, just anybody in this the whole book. Countless numbers of people that he ought to give deference to, that he ought to respect the wishes of, and he just doesn't.
But the rapist, that's fine.
What the fuck, man?
If you'd hear, I'd probably spit on you a little bit.
Just a little bit?
Oh,
That's
my
assault,
God.
though. I wouldn't do that.
God.
Again, because I have empathy and...
I mean, this is the total feelings over facts. They're like, oh, why isn't he siding with the victims? Why is he siding with people that are doing bad things? Well, maybe because it's a book about how to not do bad things. Okay, it's a book about how to become a better person. It's not a book about feeling bad for people that have been wronged.
Yeah.
Okay, who's that going to help?
Yeah, where is that book? How to Feel Bad for People? I mean, that just seems like it's got bestseller written all over it.
Yeah, it's like it's just so it's so dumb.
There is probably a book like that. It's like how to repent for your white privilege.
No more superstition for $5. Jordan Peterson needs to analyze Neon Genesis. I would pay to see money for that. Neon Genesis, especially the original series, is so like vague almost and out there that I would love to see Jordan Peterson like put his spin on it.
He'll do
that would get 1 million views.
We're gonna become a patron. It's a Patreon question.
Yes. Become a Patreon just to make Jordan Peterson analyze Neon Genesis.
Recognize the laws of the land. Not gonna assault you, Peterson.
You know what anime Jordan Peterson would probably love, though? Is Fooly Cooley.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Fooly Cooley is great. And
it's all about manhood.
Yeah, totally. I haven't watched a new one. I watched like 3 episodes, but I haven't watched the whole thing.
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah. It was pretty good. What I saw was pretty amazing. The first one I think is only 6 episodes, and it has a very David Lynch quality to it that I like. There's a clip that I've never done anything with that's Jordan Peterson talking, like insulting David Lynch for being too complicated, for making things needlessly complicated, which is just an amazing clip considering everyone accuses Jordan Peterson of making things needlessly complicated.
That's pretty funny. That's funny.
Not worth it.
If you were here, I would slap you. It's a Peterson quote.
Oh, okay. So that makes
Oh,
it
boy.
okay.
So then they get to the point where he's talking about Christ being shown the kingdoms of the world by Satan. Christ sees the kingdoms of the world laid out before him, for the taking. That's the siren call of earthly power, the opportunity to control and order everyone and everything. Christ is offered the pinnacle of the dominance hierarchy, the animalistic desire of every naked ape, the obedience of all, the most wondrous of estates, the power to build, to increase, the possibility of unlimited sensual gratification. That's expedience writ large, but that's not all. Such expansion of status also provides unlimited opportunity for the inner darkness to reveal itself. The lust for blood, rape, and destruction is very much part of power's attraction.
What?
Jordan Peterson just said...
Power's attraction...
and this, to me, this is a tacit admission
Yeah.
of Jordan Peterson to me. I think he thinks everyone thinks this way.
I do too. Like if I was talking about this, if I had power, like, do you ever fantasize about like if you just had power over everything?
Usually it's like I win a huge Powerball lottery and I have a
Sure,
lot of money to...
well, that's power in
to
capitalist society.
yeah,
Sure.
to like the beneficial things I could do. At no point
Right.
does my mind go, think of how much murder and rapes I could do. Jordan, when you think about you getting power, if you feel that power will allow you to do things like hurt others and rape, and that's like a thing that is like inbuilt into the want for power for you, you are a psychopath.
Yeah. No, that's not good. When I think of power, I immediately think, how can I fix all these problems? That's what I think about.
And even if that's some of that's naive, it's...
You know who else, when they had power, thought, how can I fix all these problems? A little man named Adolf Hitler.
Chairman Mao. There's a whole slew.
Stalin.
There's a whole slew of them. They're like, let me solve your problems for you. Problem number one, the Jews.
Exactly. I love this section when I first heard it because they're rallying against, oh, what is Jordan Peterson talking about? People, he thinks everyone just wants to rape and murder people with power. And then he literally, then fucking, Beard here literally shows exactly the trap that everyone falls into. They say, oh, I'm going to get the power and fix everyone.
Yep.
And what happens? That inevitably leads to everyone killing and raping and doing all the fucked up shit.
Yeah.
Because that's what has been the repeated pattern in our fucking human history since the dawn of time.
Yeah. I think one of the problems is, I mean, when they come at Jordan Peterson all the time saying that, we have to be pro-activism. And Jordan Peterson is not against activism. Jordan Peterson is about incompetent activism. And this is really, this is what this is. It's completely incompetent activism. Like all those stories are incompetent activism because the things that they want to do just are not, these guys don't understand human nature at all. So,
right, or if they do, they're turning that off just so they can pwn Jordan Peterson.
I don't think they really understand human nature.
Well, it'd be interesting to do. We'd have to do the experiment that you said, where you talk about all this stuff, but remove Jordan Peterson from the context.
I'm coming back to the good people thing that I said in the beginning when I said I thought that the SJWs were good people. They were just naive because, like he seems to be naive in thinking that there's only like limited number of bad people, and Jordan Peterson is saying that in the right situation anyone can be a bad person, and like that is the uncomfortable truth that I think is actually correct.
Oh, definitely.
But
like if you just
go ahead,
if you just look at like I think the most prime example of that is Japan in World War II, and what they did in Nanking was so horrifying and so barbaric.
What did they do? I don't know.
They basically they just like, it was like wide sale slaughter of the Chinese people in that city, and they would literally make like sons and daughters like rape their parents, and then they would kill them.
Oh my god!
And they would make the children like carry like their parents' heads. It was like literally every terrible and then they'd gang rape women and then just kill them afterwards. It's like I forget the death count of Nanking is like out of fucking control for an occupied city. And it's like literally every possible horrible thing you can imagine that would happen happened in that situation.
That's what they do in the Long Way Gone book. I didn't want to say it, but the whole like parent, like forcing kids to have sex with their parents. Oh God.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. That seems like that's a very common theme of like fucked up things that soldiers make happen in these situations.
But this is why I was saying that they're so naive, because they just like they don't know that this is a common thing.
Exactly. And that's what makes them so dangerous. For all their crying about Jordan Peterson being dangerous, it's like, no, you're dangerous because you don't accept the fucking truth, which is that this could happen to anyone, that you could become the monster in the right situation, and thus you must be eternally vigilant to prevent yourself from becoming that.
Yeah. And just society can degrade, can turn into this under the guise of we're going to fix everything.
Exactly. That's what SJWism is. It's authoritarianism under the guise of we're going to fix everything, make it better.
Yeah.
And that's what fucking communism is. That's what all how many authoritarian rulers come to power by saying, "Oh, I'm going to kill everyone and be terrible."
Oh, yeah. That doesn't sell. No.
Yeah. It doesn't really happen that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Tyler Preston for $5. Why are Tweedledee and Tweedledum straight up lying about Peterson? They got daddy issues. Bunch of beta boys with daddy issues.
I almost said beta. I was like, beta.
I wouldn't be that surprised.
He's virtue signaling about how non-rapey he is. I think it's cute.
Yeah, there you go. Monkey Chips for $5. Anime plus games plus politics. Sitch, this is the combination that will pierce the heavens. Keep it up.
Wrong.
Thank you very much, Monkey.
Wrong. I noticed in your last video was amazing, by the way. Everyone should check it out.
Thank you.
The Chipotle corporate training guide cartoon, just so good. But you didn't even, your avatar was strangely missing in that video, I noticed.
Well, it wouldn't make sense with the context of what the video was.
You're right. It wouldn't make sense with the context and you.
That's why I didn't. I only put it in at the very end.
It's almost like, credits. But the whole thing is almost like completely normie friendly.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's good.
And it still didn't do very well
because your thumbnail sucks, dude. You have a terrible thumbnail. I'm looking at it right now. It doesn't say.
Tell me. I'll change the thumbnail. You have to tell me what to do.
Tell me what to. All of my thumbnails say, if you don't click me, you've made the worst mistake of your life. Like seriously. They're like you couldn't have more fun than clicking on this thumbnail. We'll
So tell me. You got me specifics.
Well, I don't have anything on the fly, I mean.
Okay. We'll work on it.
I mean, you could well, I don't want to we're dabbling into the deep subconscious mind of human beings, and it might be offensive to Hugo and Jake fans who are hate watching us. So I don't want to do it.
Danimal Collective 1 for $4.99. This whole video series carries a common theme about how they're both moral superiors to Jordan Peterson, and therefore they're right. That is a very accurate statement of their virtue signaling.
Totally, but they're completely wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as I said, not only they're wrong, but I think they're dangerous.
They are dangerous.
Dangerous in that idea that you have to be aware of the dark side of humanity that's always lurking within the hearts of all men.
But this is what,
like the shadow.
This is what Jordan Peterson is talking about when he talked about the naive girl with the boyfriend. Like he's saying, and this is why I'm saying that SJWs deep down are good people. They have a theory of mind that many people have, most people have, I'd even argue, that other people are just like me, but in different bodies. It's not that's not true.
Right.
There are a certain number among us that are very dark people. They think of terrible things that other people can do to one another, and it gives them great pleasure. And when society descends into chaos, they step in charge. It's a terrible, terrible thing, and we must always avoid it.
And what's going to happen, when the people that say that they say like, "Oh, that's not me. I'm a good person." It's like, yeah, it's really easy when you're living fat and happy in a Western society that's rich to be a good person.
Well,
it's not so easy when you're in, the child army. And so
exactly. It's not
to be a good person.
It's not so easy and listen, I'm not saying that you wouldn't feel. This is why Jordan Peterson is talking about it, because the people generally do feel horrible about it. The guy who's pushing the buttons, the guy who's got the bayonet in your back and saying it's you or him, that guy doesn't have nightmares at night because he's a freaking psychopath, right? But he's the one that has put you in the situation where it's you slit the guy's throat or it's you. And that's when you make a decision. And I don't, hey, I'm not in that situation. It's real easy for me to say, oh, I would never do it. I would never, I know. I am Hugo. I would never do such a thing, right? But there are a
Right.
certain percentage of people that will do it. And guess what? We're off to the next genocide. It's terrible. Denying it is not the correct action. And this,
So that's right. What we're saying right now on this stream is that Hugo and Jake are advocating for the next Holocaust.
even, I mean, this is why on the, for those of you guys that didn't see it, we did an interview with Matt Green. He wrote Jordan Peterson, a critical article of Jordan Peterson comparing, he's saying that Jordan Peterson emboldens Holocaust deniers and anti-Semitism. Like his thing is anti-Semitism. And I asked him about like, what is the proper way to have these conversations? Because these are the conversations that need to be had if you want to avoid when things like fall into chaos. And how, I mean, this has happened half a dozen times in the 20th century, and millions of people have died. It seems like you'd want to know how to avoid that.
And we have more efficient ways of killing people than ever before.
Oh man.
I mean,
in Rwanda, they had machetes and they did like 300,000 in like 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's like, we talked about this with in the Sargon capitalistic arco-capitalist debate, is that it's foolish to look at the world and say, oh, violence is on the decline. It's like, okay, what about what about the first half of the 1900s?
Rwanda happened in 1990.
Well, yeah, but they're talking about white people problems. Okay.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
They're racist.
In case you didn't know, that's what he meant.
In case you didn't know. Z Poopus with the great GER icon for $1.99. So what Adam is saying is SJWs think all are NPCs. Well, see, you're not saying that SJWs think everyone's as NPCs. They think everyone is like them.
Yes.
Right? That's what you're saying.
Yes.
So that's the problem, is that they don't think people are like NPCs.
But technically, social justice warriors are NPCs, but
that's true. Yes, true. That's a good point.
They think empathy is this great deterrent when a bayonet is in your back, saying it's you or him. They think empathy is like empathy works to a certain extent. It's not. Give it the right situation.
Strange. It's very bizarre, because we have a situation where the people who are biological determinists or more biological determinists are all arguing for strong social controls to help that. And the people that are social constructionist are arguing for no social controls.
Because we can all just be good. I know. It's
so weird.
It is weird.
Man faces world for $2. Anti-theists want to end religion but aren't for power? ? Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem, is that there's always going to be a vacuum.
Yeah, someone's going to
that's going to be filled by something. Yeah.
Psychopaths come to mind. They have this crazy power-seeking pattern of behavior. It's not pretty.
Right. Beyond the Dictator's Handbook, the reason that we have people constantly who are corrupt, become the ones that get into power, is because they're the ones that are willing to do what it takes to get into power in the first place.
Exactly.
I mean, that should be proof of fucking what we're talking about already.
Exactly.
That's why things get fucked up in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at the Saddam Hussein thing. Like, as soon as he came to power, there's a video where he murdered like 80 people in parliament. Like, oh, it's crazy. Can you imagine if that happened in the United States? If all of a sudden one party took power and it was like they came out and was like, yeah, these people are against the state, and started taking them out and shooting them. Oh, God.
Right. See, since we don't live in that society, you have people that are naive and think that this is the normal way of life is to live in a democracy or sorry, a constitutional republic or whatever the fuck the correct term is.
Yeah. Dumb people, man. Dangerous.
So should we keep going?
Do you want to quit? These guys are boring as hell, man. We should.
I feel like they're just repeating themselves at this point.
You want to. I feel like you want to pull up the. Do you want to just quit, or do you want to pull something else up?
Well, what else would we pull up? I mean, it's fucking. We've been doing this for 5 hours.
Oh, really? Okay. Losing steam, huh? Not. I thought you were Joe Rogan, but I guess you're just.
Oh, wait. When has Joe Rogan done a 5 hour? They do like 4 hours max. Okay.
Yeah, he pulls off. Do you notice the Joe Rogan thing? It's kind of funny because sometimes there are a few guests that overstay their welcome, and then they're like how they tie it up is pretty interesting. Do you ever notice that? Or you don't stay to the end?
No, I usually listen to the whole thing.
Sometimes he like pushes them out the door. It's like, okay,
right,
time to go. Let's get.
You're fucking boring. Gotta go.
Well, let us know.
That's what we're doing, Hugo and Jake.
Yeah, let us
fucking
know.
Boring.
Let us know in the comments if Hugo and Jake actually get to their point. I mean, I think we watched 40 minutes of this thing already. And as
There's
always,
another 40 minutes left.
And as always, the invitation is open to them if they want to come and get harassed by us in person. They want to get schooled.
Yeah, why wouldn't they want it? Why wouldn't they want that?
They want to get schooled. Well, maybe they have. I mean, they're so delusional. Maybe they think they'd actually school us.
Right. Yeah, obviously, I'm assuming they would.
I don't know.
Well, I guess that's it.
All right.
For today.
I'm hitting stop. Thanks for your super chats, guys.
Thanks for stopping by. Hope you all enjoyed it.
Yep. Take care, everyone.